A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner and more. Hi there, it's me Finn, and tonight, we're going to talk about something a little unusual, yet strangely calming. You've probably heard of the Romans, you know, the togas, the emperors, the statues, without pants. But did you ever stop and wonder, who planned those wild, wine-soaked Roman parties? You know, the ones with music, grapes, and yes, orgies. 'Cause those didn't just happen. Somebody had to think it through. Someone had to book the villa, pick the oils, choose the right flowers. Tonight, we'll slowly wander through the quiet corridors of Roman luxury. We'll meet the person whose job was to make decadence look effortless. Let's start by subscribing. And now, let's drift into the story. It's a quiet morning in Rome. Somewhere around 60 AD, the sun rises, slowly, over terracotta rooftops. Soft doves coo in the corners of crumbling stone archways. And in a shaded apartment, just above a row of bakeries, a man blinks awake. His name is Petronius Septimus. He's not a senator, not a general, not a poet or gladiator. Petronius is an orgy planner. Not a priest, not a street sweeper, but something in between. He stretches, rolls his neck, brushes off the fine linen sheets, and takes a slow breath. Today is going to be a very long day, because tonight is the birthday of Senator Lucius Arruntius. And that means one thing. There will be dozens of guests, hundreds of candles, silken couches, peeled figs, perfumed fountains, and if Petronius does his job well, nobody will remember who planned it all. The perfect party. He begins his day, as always, with a basin of warm water. A slave, young, quiet, and fast with their hands, brings a shallow bronze bowl. Petronius rinses his face, dabs his eyes with cloth soaked in rose oil, and lets out a long sigh. Not because he's tired, but because the planning begins. Now, today, every decision must whisper luxury, not scream it. First, he unwraps a scroll. It's a guest list. 38 confirmed, 4 maybes, 2 people absolutely must not be seated near each other. Oh yes, Livia from the Aventine, and Antonia from the Palatine. They once fought over a flute player. Very embarrassing. So, 2 couches apart, at least. Petronius makes a mark in ink, gently, with a little bronze stylus dipped in walnut dye. Next, the food. He closes his eyes, and begins to imagine the flavors. Salty olives, stuffed with honey-roasted almonds, duck glazed in date syrup, roasted dormice with pine nuts. That'll be popular again. They loved it last time. And of course, wine. Gallons of it. But not just wine. He must choose which vineyards blend to serve first, middle and last. A lighter Falernian at the beginning, something mellow to ease the conversation. Then, a heavier vintage from Campania, that one with the smoky finish, perfect to pair with rich pork. He writes it all down, softly murmuring to himself. Mild first, sweet second, bitter near the end. The guests must not notice the transition. They must simply melt into it. And now, onto the flowers. Petronius never leaves this to chance. He walks carefully through the Sabura market, a place that smells of garlic, wet stone and violets. He picks the freshest petals by eye. No wilting edges. No browning. Yes, white hyacinth, purple iris, a touch of crushed mint between the seats to freshen the air. And roses. Always roses. But not red. Never red. Too obvious. Tonight, a pale pink, almost white, the color of first light. He arranges them with the flower boy. A slim, barefoot teen, with clever hands and no voice. Together they speak only through glances. That one, move it here. This one, just one stem. Good. By now, the sun is higher. Petronius is sweating, but not because of the heat. No, because now comes the music. And, the musicians are always tricky. He travels to the villa, where they rehearse. In a shady room he finds a man with a lyre. another with a curved flute, and a girl with a voice like falling water. But they're drunk, of course. Petronius sighs. He places a coin on the bench, and they sober up, very quickly. Tonight, he says, is not for chaos. He wants something soft, flowing, nothing with horns, or too much rhythm. We're not marching into battle. We're sinking into velvet. And they nod. They know. As the afternoon slouches in, Petronius returns to the house. He lays out the scented oils, jasmine for the hands, cypress for the cushions, cinnamon for the floors. Just a little, only enough for one guest to notice and wonder. What is that smell? Then, the entertainment. A poet. No. Too slow. A dancer, perhaps. But not one who kicks too high. A juggler with torches. No, no. Fire and silk don't mix well. He finally decides on a slow underwater-like dance by two twins from Cyprus. They move like kelp in the tide. Nobody will remember their faces. Only how it felt to watch.
Yes, that's the feeling he wants.
That drifting, dreamy, almost floating sensation. Perfect. As the day nears its close, Petronius dresses in soft linen, dyed a color no one has a name for, somewhere between ivory and dusk. His sandals are polished, his hair gently curled, not for attention, but to be invisible. He walks through the halls of the villa, checking every torch, every jug of wine, every curve of every couch. A little wrinkle in the pillow, he smooths it. A candle too bright, he dims it. A scent too strong, he mutes it with fresh fig leaves. And then, finally, he breathes. The night is ready. He steps back, blends into the columns, and watches as the guests begin to arrive, slowly, laughing gently, floating on wine and honeyed air. The perfect illusion of chaos, all crafted by one man's quiet hands. Petronius smiles and disappears into the shadows. Tomorrow, he'll plan another, but tonight, he watches his dream unfold, and it is silent, soft, and beautiful. A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner and more. The sky has gone soft, a gentle purple that slides into twilight like silk, and Petronius, still watching from the shadows, lets his fingers drift lightly along the edge of a polished marble pillar. The guests are arriving, not all at once. No, that would ruin it. They arrive like notes in a song, one by one, a whisper of silk here, a glimmer of bronze there. The senator's villa glows with warm lamplight, and the sound of sandals over mosaic tiles echoes softly like trickling water. Petronius, exhales slowly. This is where his real work begins. Because the trick is not to plan the party, it's to guide it, invisibly, once it begins. A look here, a pause there, a servant sent quietly to refill a wine jug before it's empty. See, the man near the olives just leaned back to speak. Petronius snaps his fingers. A flute begins to play, just softly, just enough to fill the silence between their words. Yes, it flows. In the corner, one of the Cypress twins begins her dance. Slow, swaying, not for applause, but for the mood. The guests watch her the way one watches a flame. Not really thinking, just drawn in. One man, a young noble with too much gold around his wrists, lets his mouth hang open slightly. Petronius chuckles, just once. But then, he notices something. Too sharp. The kitchen, the boar is cooking too fast. He slips away like a cat, through the columns. In the kitchen, the cook is shouting, "There's smoke." Petronius doesn't raise his voice. He never does. He lifts the lid on the clay oven. The meat is singed, but not ruined, not yet. He takes a cup of watered honey from the shelf and drizzles it across the skin. The flames hiss and settle. Close. He wipes his hands on a cloth, folds it, places it down, and returns. Nobody noticed, except maybe the flute player, who gave a little nod as he passed. They always know. Back in the main hall, the conversation has shifted. It always moves in stages. First, polite greetings. Then, laughter. Then, stories. Now, They are in the whispering stage. This is when secrets are shared. The couch, near the fountain, is too crowded, too much energy gathering there. Petronius steps behind a servant and murmurs, "Spill a little wine, just enough," on the cushion nearest the senator. A few minutes later, there's a small gasp. A servant bows, apologizing. The guests move slightly. The balance returns. Petronius watches from behind a curtain, like adjusting sails on a boat. He steers the atmosphere, not too fast, not too loud, just enough to keep them floating. Then comes the moment. Always, there is a moment, when the room falls quiet, just briefly. Petronius knows it. He feels it in his bones. It's the moment before excess becomes indulgence. And he has to decide, should he let it tip over, let the music swell, the guests fall into their wine, their desires, their velvet cushions, or, not yet. He decides, no, not yet. He steps into the candlelight. He speaks softly, "My friends, we have prepared something sweet." And with that, the curtain lifts. Behind it, a low table with tiny preserved fruits arranged like flowers. Pomegranates split open, figs bursting with honey, almonds soaked in rose water. It glitters. The room breathes in, and the spell continues. Later, he notices the senator has begun to slouch. His hands are stained red with wine. His wife is dancing with a man half her age. And nobody cares. That's how Petronius knows they are ready for the part that truly defines his craft. How to say it gently. The pleasures. The Romans didn't separate dining from desire. It was a flowing stream. Food, fragrance, music, touch. Petronius does not orchestrate it. He guides it, slowly, like a gentle stream trickling into warm water. He nods to the attendants. Soft cushions are carried in. Gossamer curtains drawn between rooms. Lanterns dimmed, one by one, so shadows pool softly across the floor like spilled ink. He doesn't watch what happens next. He never does. That's not his place. His place is at the edge, ensuring no one's cup runs dry, ensuring no quarrels rise, ensuring the poetry of the night is uninterrupted. And right now, he hears silence. Not empty silence, but deep, content silence. The kind that comes only when every need is met, when no thought reaches the surface, just feeling. He did well. A soft breeze stirs the perfumed air. Outside, the moonlight casts shadows of olive branches on the villa's marble floor. He walks through them, almost stepping into a painting. He passes the musicians, asleep now, lyre resting on the floor. He passes a couch, where a man snores softly, his hand still holding a grate, and he smiles. These are the signs of success. Not cheers, not applause, but slumped shoulders, soft breathing, and the sound of sandals kicked off and forgotten beneath silk robes. He returns to the garden. The fountain trickles, just the way he tuned it earlier. Not too loud, not too soft. He sits on the low step, dips his fingers in the cool water, and watches the stars above. He doesn't drink, not tonight. His mind must stay clear, because he's already thinking of the next one, the next villa, the next senator, the next sweet balance of salt and wine and laughter. But for now, just now, he lets the breeze brush against his cheek, and listens to the fading notes of a party well played. A cat slips between the columns. Petronius doesn't startle, he just watches it pass, quiet, sleek, unnoticed, just like him. The last candle dies, the shadows deepen, and the night is complete. A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner and more. The morning always arrives slowly in Rome. Not because of the sun, oh no, the sun is bold here, bright, warm, but because the bodies inside the villa still linger in sleep, heavy with wine, silk, and memories. Petronius opens one eye, then the other. He hasn't slept. He rarely does after a gathering like this. His brain, it's still sorting through last night, like tidying scrolls in a messy library. He rises, quietly. His tunic is already folded on a chair, his sandals lined up. Of course, he prepared it all the night before. He steps out into the peristyle, the garden courtyard, that now smells faintly of crushed herbs and jasmine ash. A musician's flute lies forgotten under a fig tree. A sandal dangles from a vine. He sighs, half smiling. Yes, it was a good night. But now begins the other half of the planner's craft. The cleanup, the whispers, the remembering, and the forgetting. Petronius passes a sleeping guard. The man's head is tilted back, snoring lightly. His helmet has rolled into a flower bed. A servant girl tiptoes across the floor with a wet cloth and a pale face. Too much wine? Petronius asks gently. She nods, doesn't speak. He gestures toward the kitchen. Cucumber water, fennel, a touch of mint, that should soothe the stomach. She scurries away like a sparrow. He always knows how to fix a body, or a mood. But today is not for guests. Today is for the host. Senator Decimus is awake, and he wants a debrief. Petronius moves through a quiet hall where half-draped bodies rest on velvet couches. The senator is on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, hair wild. He's chewing a dried date and staring at the hills beyond the city. Ah, Petronius, my poet of pleasure, he says. His voice is rough with sleep. Petronius bows, not too low. How was your night? The senator snorts. My wife vanished with that actor. My nephew made a speech to a pillow. My cousin tried to ride the kitchen boy like a horse. Petronius says nothing. The senator chews slowly. Then, it was perfect. Petronius nods once. That's all he needs. Then comes the usual, a list of which guests overstayed. Who needs apology scrolls? Who left their sandals behind? And of course, payments. Coins are counted out in small velvet pouches, some for the musicians, some for the cooks, a special bonus for the dancers from Alexandria. But the senator's steward, a nervous man with a crooked nose, clears his throat. About the wine, he mutters. We may have gone over budget. Petronius raises an eyebrow. Define. The man mumbles a number. Petronius's lips press into a line. But he doesn't argue. It was necessary. He signs a small scroll. The steward scurries away. Later that morning, Petronius walks through the streets of Rome, not as a servant, not as a noble, but something in between. A whisper of silk in a city of stone. The baker waves. A prostitute near the shrine of Venus blows him a kiss. He nods, politely. He walks slowly. He listens to what the city remembers and what it forgets. At the forum, two women gossip over a bolt of purple fabric. They speak of last night's gathering. One says she heard the senator wept into a bowl of grapes. The other says someone poured honey on a lyre. Both are wrong. Petronius smiles softly to himself. This is part of it too. The myth-making. The softening of edges. He walks on. By noon, he reaches his favorite bathhouse. Not the grand one. Not the one senators visit. No, this one is older, smaller. The marble is cracked. The attendants don't fuss. And the water is always just right. He strips off his tunic, sighs as he slips into the warm pool. Yes. This is where he resets. Steam curls around him like a curtain. Other men talk of chariots, of laws, of grain prices. Petronius lets it all drift past. His thoughts are already dancing into the future. What theme for the next gathering? Something Greek, something rural, a Saturnalia preview. Maybe something with spice. A Persian night, with saffron wine, and almond milk. He lets his head tilt back. The ceiling above is painted like a sky, stars scattered across blue plaster. One has peeled away. He stares at it, imagining the next candlelight, the next silken curtain, the next perfect silence before the laughter. In the evening, he returns home. His home is modest, small, but arranged perfectly. Scrolls lined by scent, lavender, cedar, myrrh. He picks one at random, a recipe for rose petal custard. He tucks it into a small leather pouch. Inspiration. He sets a tiny oil lamp beside his bed, writes a few notes on a wax tablet. Musician. Better lyre needed. Curtains too sheer. Replace with indigo. Spice mix. Less cumin, more cardamom. He exhales, slow, and allows the silence to grow. Outside, a chariot rattles past. A baby cries. A dog barks once. Then, quiet, just the hum of Rome in the dark. He closes his eyes and begins to dream, not of the past, but of the next perfect night. A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner and more. The moon. It hadn't quite risen yet, but Petronius, he was already up again. That's the thing with this kind of life. You don't get long rests, just soft moments. Tiny breaths between storms of silk and song. Tonight, it was a scouting night. Yes, he doesn't plan every evening to be wild or loud, but sometimes when the wind in Rome feels right, and the marble streets are quiet enough to echo sandals in rhythm, it's time to look, to search, to find inspiration. Petronius pulls a dark, simple cloak around himself. His hair is neat, his expression unreadable. He walks softly past the lamps, past temples, past the shadows of guards and lovers. Where is he going? To the Subura. Yes, that's right. The lower part of the city. Loud, dirty, beautiful in a way that Rome's nobles pretend not to notice. But Petronius, he notices everything. There's a bakery open late. The scent of flatbread mixes with roasted garlic and onion. A girl sings to herself in a cracked voice while folding a tablecloth. A group of young men sit on steps, rolling dice, arguing over copper, and down at the edge of the alley, there's music, flutes, tambourines, laughter. Not polite laughter, the real kind, the kind that comes from the stomach, with no filters. Petronius lingers at the doorway. Inside, the tavern is packed. Oil lamps hang low, shadows dance against the cracked walls, and at the center, 3 dancers move like water. Not perfect, not trained in the way Roman nobles want, but honest. One has bells around her ankles, another wears feathers in her hair. The third, yes, she catches his eye, not because she is the most beautiful, but because she watches the room while she dances. Like him, like a planner, she notices, their eyes meet, and she smiles. Pause, just slightly. He doesn't stay long. That's not his style, but before he leaves, he slips a folded piece of papyrus into the coin bowl. On it, a time, a place, an invitation. He walks out into the night again. Now, the city is quieter. A drunk man sings near the forum. Somewhere, a dog whines. Petronius walks to the Tiber. The water is low. It smells of fish and moss. But he isn't here for the view. No, he's here for the herbs. Hidden near a cracked stepstone are tiny sprigs of Roman mint and night poppy. He gathers them in silence. Why? For scent. For infusions. For little bowls placed behind curtains to keep the air sweet, and the moods gentler. Even these smallest things matter. By the time he returns home, the stars are fully out. He sits at his small table, lights a lamp, and begins to sketch. Not a picture. No, a room, a gathering, a fantasy. He draws a circular bench, surrounded by water, lit from below by lanterns floating in clay bowls. He draws curtains draped between laurel trees. He writes notes in the margins. Peacock feathers, not dyed. Flute in A minor, almond sweets shaped like coins. He yawns softly, closes his eyes for a moment, just a moment. Then, a knock. That's strange. It's too late for a visitor. He opens the door slowly, and there is the dancer, the one with the observing eyes. She doesn't speak, just holds up the papyrus note he left. I believe this is yours, she says. Petronius smiles. He gestures her inside. They speak for hours, not flirtation, not business. Something quieter. He learns her name, Lyra. She was born in Crete, raised by a potter. Her mother was a cook for a noble family. She watched their parties from under the table. She asks him questions too, but he answers only some. He prefers mystery. He prefers mystery. Peeper dawn. She leaves, not with promises, just with a glance that says, maybe. That's enough. Petronius returns to his sketch, adds a note, Lyra, 3rd platform, feathered crown. Then, he extinguishes the lamp, and finally sleeps. For a few hours, just enough. When the sun returns, the house is already full. Scrolls arrive, notes from guests, payments wrapped in purple cloth. One note says, Your scent lingers on my skin. What blend was it? Another simply says, when is the next? He smiles. He'll never reply directly. That's not his way. But they'll know, because invitations arrive not with scrolls, but with rumors, with petals scattered across doorsteps, with a single flute note in the middle of a quiet afternoon. He prepares again, this time, something smaller, something for 6 guests only. He chooses the ingredients: poppy bread, spiced olives, wine from Gaul aged in pine. He instructs the cook, no garlic this time, fennel instead, sweeter. He lays out the fabrics himself, each pillow placed just so, each color chosen to reflect torchlight. He even chooses the silence, that delicate space between music and laughter, because even silence must be planned. That evening, the 6 guests arrive one by one: 3 nobles, 1 poet, 1 musician, and Lyra. She's dressed in linen the color of dusk, her eyes steady, calm. Petronius greets each one by name, offers a single grape, just one, symbolic, sensory, soft. He doesn't speak much after that. He watches. He observes how the poet speaks too loudly, how the noble to his left watches Lyra, how the musician hums when nervous. He stores it all, because each of these people, they'll be back, and he'll know just how to make the next night feel made only for them, because it will be. That is the secret. That's why they return. They don't know how, but they feel it, and they sleep afterward, not because of exhaustion, but because, everything just feels right, like a dream where all the chairs are soft, the candles never burn out, the wine is always warm, and no one is ever truly alone. A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner, and more. Morning again, but this time, it feels slower, not quiet, no. Rome is never quiet, but the sounds are distant, softened by the curtain-draped windows in Petronius's villa, the low hum of carts in the street, a vendor shouting about figs, somewhere a lyre being tuned softly. Inside, Petronius sits alone in his bathing chamber, not soaking, not relaxing, just thinking. His hand glides through the steam rising from the warm water, watching it dance, twist, rise into nothing. Planning is like this: a motion, a stirring, a vanishing. Nothing remains after the night except memory, and memory must be carefully molded. Today Petronius isn't planning an event, not directly. Today is for preparation. The behind-the-scenes pieces, the kind no guest ever sees. The garden needs tending, not flowers, not food, but atmosphere. He walks slowly through his private courtyard. The sun hasn't reached its peak yet, just soft yellow light, trickling through fig leaves. The scent here, lavender and laurel. But he stopped. No, something is wrong. He crouches near a small fountain. The moss growing at the base has spread too much, and the water, a bit cloudy. These things matter, even if no one sees them. The space feels different, like a thread is lit. He calls his gardener, a short, quiet man named Fabius. Petronius doesn't scold, just gestures gently. A look, a nod, that's all. Fabius understands. He will fix it. He writes her a note on a palm leaf. Wear the honey-colored silk. Bring your silver bells. Tonight is about breath and stillness. He doesn't seal it, just folds it gently, and hands it to a courier boy who runs barefoot. Petronius watches him disappear into the alley, and smiles. To noon now. It's time for the scent. A scent, more important than music, more important than food, because smell, it lingers. It anchors memory. It wraps around the brain like a ribbon. He visits the apothecary down by the Temple of Saturn. A small woman named Cassia greets him. Her shop is filled with jars, dried petals, crushed barks. She knows him, knows not to talk too much. He hands her a list, warm, but not spicy, sweet but not sticky, something like the air after a thunderstorm. Cassia blinks, then smiles. She begins mixing. Crushed iris root, oil of myrrh, a touch of pine resin. She lets him smell. Almost. He leans closer, whispers, add barley smoke. She pauses. That's unusual, but obeys. He inhales again. Perfect. She pours the mixture into a glass vial. seals it with wax, and wraps it in lambskin. No label, just a feeling. Evening creeps closer now, shadows stretch longer. Petronius returns home, and heads to the chamber where the gathering will be. It's not a hall, not a dining room. No, it's a domed room with stars painted across the ceiling. Soft cushions in a circle. No chair, a fountain in the center. Quiet, low, barely a trickle. He adjusts the oil lamps. Not too bright, not too low. Each flame should reflect once, but not twice. That's his rule. He places the scent vial into a small bronze dish, sets it near the fountain. The warmth from the water will carry the fragrance slowly. Yes, everything is in place now, except the guests. He retreats, bathes, dresses, not in his planner robes, not tonight. Tonight he wears linen dyed in shadow gray, a ring of polished amber on his finger, nothing more. Tear. Then slowly he walks to the door, and listens. The first knock is soft, like a bird tapping glass. He opens the door. A noble woman enters. Silent, graceful, her eyes lined with dark kohl, her wrists jingling softly. No words, just a bow. Then another knock. A poet again, a new one. Young, nervous. He bows too deeply. Petronius simply nods. Guests arrive, one by one, each entering the domed room, sinking into cushions, whispering softly. The air is already thick with scent, but not heavy, just enough to make the skin hum. And then, Lyra. She doesn't knock, she just appears. Her honey-colored silk clings like water, silver bells around her ankle. She nods to him, to the room, to the moment. She walks in a circle, slowly, barefoot. No music yet, just her movements, her rhythm. The bells chime softly with every step, and every guest watches, not because they must, but because they can't help it. She is the mood. Then, a servant appears at the side, carries a tray with figs soaked in almond milk. Another tray follows, with warm barley cakes dusted in rose powder. And finally, a small clay bowl. Inside, crushed dates with a single pistachio inside each. Simple, gentle, easy to eat with fingers. Tear. And then, music. Not loud, not structured. Just two flutes from behind the wall. One low, one high. They circle each other like wind. The room breathes. And the orgy, not yet. Not in the way you think. Because tonight, it's not about chaos. It's about texture, about timing, about melting into the space between the sounds. Petronius watches, always watches, and slowly, gently, the guests begin to move closer, one hand resting beside another, a finger brushing a wrist. Nothing forced, nothing spoken, just warmth. He turns to leave the room, not to abandon, no, but to let the moment grow on its own. He believes in space, in letting desire grow like moss, not fire, and he returns to his own chamber, lights a single candle, sits in silence, and waits, because part of his role is to end it too, but not with words, with scent, with darkness, with silence. He'll know the moment, he always does, when the laughter fades, when the laughter fades, when the cushions shift slower, when even the bells around Lyra's ankle stop ringing. Then, and only then, will he return, extinguish the lamp, cover the fountain, and let Rome fall back into sleep. Here, a day in the life of a Roman orgy planner and more. Dawn's light seeps gently through high-arched windows. Petronius sits quietly in his small writing chamber, warmed by the soft glow of the morning sun. He hasn't slept long, but his mind is alert, sharp like a polished blade, though tonight's blade is wrapped in velvet. He uncaps a small pot of the scent, cassia made. A quiet waft of pine and rain drifts in the air. He inhales it, lets it guide his next thought. Tear. You see, the art of planning isn't just about the night. It's about what lingers in the morning, the memory of warmth, the sense of belonging, the echo of scent in one's hair. And now, Petronius is thinking of a new gathering. Not an orgy night. No, something different, something intimate, something that whispers. A midnight garden. He draws a circle on his tablet, just a rough sketch. Between the lines, beds of night-blooming blossoms, moonflowers, jasmine that closes at dawn. herbs that glow under soft lantern light. Then, the fabrics. Yes, the fabrics. They have arrived from Alexandria. Shipped weeks ago, silks the color of dust and honey, soft enough to sleep in, thin enough to dance in. He lays them out on a low bench, touches each one with the back of his hand, feels the story in the threads. This one, for the lounge divan. That one, for Lyra. Yes, she's been invited again, but this time not as a guest. This time, as an element, a performer, a presence. He lays aside the tablet and moves to the garden courtyard. It's midday, quiet enough now that even birdsong sounds fragile. Fabius, the gardener, is there, tending to trimmed hedges. More moonflowers, Petronius says, voice soft. Place them near the fountain. Night blooming only. Fabius nods. He understands these small requests. More lantern holders too, Petronius continues. Simple bronze, low to the ground. Fabius glides away to fetch them. Petronius studies the quiet. He touches a bloom already opening in the sun, though it will wait for night. He thinks of petals on water, lantern reflections, soft voices barely carried on the air. He makes a note. Garden guests should walk like dancers. Afternoon deepens. He retires briefly, bathing, changing into soft robes dyed pale blue like the Tiber at dawn. Then, he visits Cassia again. She's mixing more scents. Another woman enters, mustard and wine in her eyes. Petronius smiles politely. He chooses another blend toned down. He rubs a drop between his fingers and places it on his wrist. He tests it in silence, nods. A soft, lingering green, like new grass after rain. He buys it, wraps it, pockets it. Evening blossoms, slipping in like water. He returns home, carries lanterns, each one just lit enough to glow softly. Silks, for tonight, are pale green, light as mist. He arranges them in arcs between columns. He rehearses in his mind how the guests will walk, where the scent will drift first, then fade, then bloom again by the fountain. Night arrives. He bathes again, long soak. He dresses in tunic of green silk, not extravagant. He moves like water. He opens the door. First guest arrives. An older poet. Hair silver, speckled cloak. He holds a small brass cup. Second, a young sculptor, carrying a sketch roll. Third, a woman from Gaul, traveler, with stories in her eyes. Each greeted with a nod. Each handed a jasmine leaf to hold. They enter the garden. Lantern light dances across stone pathways. Shadows swirl. The poet inhales. Your scent, he whispers. Yes. Third guest smiles. Lyra arrives last. Her linen the color of moonlight on water. She kneels by a lantern, arranges her ribbons just so. He watches. She touches a moonflower, petals silent in the night. The sculptor steps forward, kneels too, studying petals in her hair. The poet lifts a cup to his lips, and Petronius knows the night has begun. They wander slowly into scent, into soft talk, into warmth. No food yet, just water from the fountain. Core tranquility. Then, he brings small wooden bowls, sliced figs, dusted in honey pollen. He moves among them, quiet steward. Music arrives quietly. Lyre, low. Petronius stays at the edge, watching. They speak softly, not about politics, not about wars, but about flowers, about journeys, about the scent of rain, each voice measured, respectful, like petals falling. And the garden responds. Lanterns flicker, flowers move in the breeze, water laps the fountain stone. He adds a drop of the scent to the water. The fragrance opens further. Smell and sight merge in the intimate glow. He breathes in. Ah! They wander toward inner pathways. Lyra hums a low note. The sculptor smiles, touches her ankle. She smiles back. A figure leans, touches another's shoulder. All movement small, gentle. They slip deeper into calm. Petronius looks up at the domed ceiling above the garden, painted stars blurred by night. He thinks this is what planning is. Subtle, patient, invisible until remembered. Silent cups of water now. Soft conversation died down. Now, only breath and heartbeats. He steps forward, softly. A servant brings fresh petals. Moonflower, jasmine. He sprinkles them across the fountain's bowl. Petals drift like whispers. They lean forward. Eyes closed, they breathe the scent. Ah! At that moment, he knows the night is complete. Light shifts. The scent wraps tighter. He doesn't need to do more. He watches one set of hands tilt together. Another pair slides closer. Eyes close. Contentment rises. Petronius bows quietly. He retreats, leaves them to the soft dark, and steps away. Lights extinguish. One by one. The night ends in hush. He returns to his home, changes into plain tunic, sits at his desk, writes only one other note. Midnight garden success. Then, he lies down, sleeps deeply. Sun's light returns, soft and forgiving. As if it knows last night's hush still lingers. Petronius emerges in his humble courtyard. A servant brings a basin of cool water, scented with lavender and mint. He washes his face slowly, letting the chill steady his thoughts. It's market morning. Petronius walks under arches, worn smooth by centuries of sandal wear. He carries a woven basket, cords of silk, hidden within. Not to tempt, but to gather inspiration. Bread vendors call from carts, cheese merchants press samples wrapped in fig leaves, and the scent of fresh basil rolls under his nose. He pauses at a stall, adorned with small glass phials. The apothecary smiles. "Another blend?" she inquires softly. Petronius nods, selecting a honeyed thyme mix. Something to soothe voices, deep and calm. "Subtle," he murmurs. She pours 3 drops on his wrist. He inhales deeply. "Yes," he whispers. "That's the exhale after a long night." He places the vial gently among the silks in his basket. Further along, he stops to admire dyed fabrics, rolled into pastel spirals like watercolors. He touches one pale blue strip, notes the way it falls in his palm. Yes, this could be for the next night's memory. Myrrh dark for moments of introspection. Rose silver for the soft edges of laughter. Back at home, midday finds him in the library. Scrolls lean from shelves. Treatises on fragrance. Treatises on music. Treatises on garden design. He unrolls one describing Persian night gardens. He reads quietly, lips moving, mind forming images of fountains, lit with lamps floating atop dark water. He pencils a note, marble ripple with oil lamp lights. Afternoon fades. Petronius retreats to his bath again. This time long soak. Steam clouds his mind, carrying scents of pine and rain from earlier. He rests his forehead against the edge, and breathes. He needs rest, even a planner must recharge. He dresses in muted green and silken brown, colors of moss and ancient stone. Tonight, he plans a small assembly of writers. Scribal circle, not indulgent or lush, but quiet and curious. He lays out cushions in his domed room, fewer seats. A low table with wine aged in cedar barrels. He arranges tiny bowls, almonds soaked in rosewater, olives with saffron threads, honey cakes. No heavy wine tonight, only clarity. Rice wine lightly spiced. Guests arrive as dusk settles. A poet from Lutetia, a scribe from Alexandria, a traveler who records herbs and birdsong, each greeted with a single olive dipped in honey syrup. Lyra arrives last, wearing robes woven with threads of slate gray and pale gold. She kneels, smooths a cushion, smiles. He lights lamps slowly, 2 by the entrance, 1 by the table. Shadows curve around columns like soft drapery. He allows silence to settle, then pours wine for each. A moment of stillness surrounds them. Music arrives as a flute hum from outside. Distant, almost unnoticeable. They begin to speak in whispers. They speak of ink, of parchment, of how sunlight breaks at dawn across a desk. The poet murmurs of lost verses. The scribe smiles quietly, pressing fingertips on old scrolls. Lyra listens. Between their talks, Petronius walks slowly, smelling the thyme honey scent carried by his robe. He watches glances cross between guests. Not romantic, not possessive, just connection. Humanity melting into gentle moments. He brings more plates, figs dusted with ground almonds. He tilts a lamp higher so the edges of the room glow just enough. A hush settles. They lean forward, their shadows stretch. Discussion opens to dreams of gardens far away. Someone mentions lotus flower pools in Egypt. Another recalls bamboo wind chimes in the Far East. Petronius smiles. They're weaving worlds in candlelight. He writes notes. Lotus petal float, bamboo flute whisper. The night deepens. Guests settle into silence. Paper creases. Whispers. The gentle clink of bowls. The scent carries through the room, binding memory and moment together. He watches each face glow softly in the lamp's hush. Eventually they fall quiet. A hush that speaks of nearing sleep. No orgy tonight, just connection, just peace. He watches until their eyelids flutter. Then, he rises, walks around the circle, placing cushions gently behind backs. His gesture is careful, invisible, like a moving scent. Once each one reclines, he gives one nod. He blows out the lamps. A small breeze carried through open columns brings the faint echo of birds at dawn. He steps back. Night falls. They rest. He retreats, changes into plain cloth. At his desk he writes. Scribble circle. Warmth in quiet. Then, darkness. Then sleep. A day in the life of a Roman orgy planner, and more told in soft words with calm shadows and quiet curiosity. The sun had not yet risen. Just a few birds now, rustling lazily. Not quite a song, not quite silence either, just a whisper of waking. Petronius stirred gently in his sleeping robe. He hadn't planned to wake before dawn, but sometimes the body has its own rituals. He sat up, rubbed his eyes and listened. The city was breathing. Even in stillness, it moved. A faint trickle of water from the courtyard fountain reminded him to hydrate. He padded across the mosaic floor, touching the wall lightly as he passed. He enjoyed the texture, stone cooled from the night, slightly damp from morning mist. Little things like this. They meant more to him than most of the night's glitter. He drank deeply, honey water with a drop of lemon and rosemary. Then, without much thought, wandered into the small side chamber, where his collection of masks hung. Wooden, bronze, clay. Some were painted with smiles, others with almost nothing at all, just blank expressions. Tonight's gathering would need a different kind of design. Not playful, not scholarly, not intense. Maybe healing? Yes, a night meant to comfort. He wrote a small note. A bath of sound, sense of memory, no questions asked. He decided to visit an old friend, Marcia the musician. She lived on the southern edge of the Palatine Hill, close to the older shrines, a peaceful spot. Petronius wrapped himself in a soft beige toga, with faded green embroidery. He liked how quiet it looked. He left before the bustle began. The streets were still, just a few shopkeepers lifting their shutters, one by one, like yawns made of wood. At Marcia's door he waited. She opened slowly, her hair already braided in loops, fingers dusty with crushed rose petals. "You're early," she smiled, voice thick with sleep. "So are the birds," he answered. They both chuckled softly. He explained the night he had in mind, a gathering for those who had wept recently, for those who hadn't spoken aloud in a while, for those who wanted to remember without speaking. Marcia nodded. "Flutes," she said simply, "and lyres tuned low. Maybe even water drums." "Perfect," Petronius replied. They walked through her small garden, discussing music like some talk about fabric. She showed him a new lyre strung with fine threads from across the sea. "It sounds like longing," she whispered. "Good," he said. "We'll need longing," but softened. Back at his domus, Petronius opened the chamber where he stored his incense. Rows of tiny ceramic jars, each labeled with handwritten symbols. He chose 3. One for memory, frankincense and violet. One for letting go, myrtle and blue lotus. And one for dreams, cypress, with a touch of mint. He placed them by the basin in the atrium. The atrium was where tonight's event would unfold. No lounging couches, just cushions, round, wide, stuffed with lavender seed. He wanted his guests to sit low, near the floor, like children again. Later in the afternoon he visited the silk dyer, the one who worked near the watermill. Petronius requested soft fabric, dyed in dusk purple. Not midnight, he clarified. Just the hour before. The dyer understood. She always did. He returned home slowly. Every few steps, he would stop, touch a column, smell a flower, watch a pigeon land. He liked walking without speed, like thoughts with no deadline. Inside, he lit a tiny cone of scent, his favorite blend from last winter. The smell brought back memories, a night of candlelit silence and strangers who spoke with only their eyes. He wrote down a word, unsaid. That might be the theme for tonight, unsaid things. As dusk arrived, he scattered petals through the atrium, white rose and marigold. They made no pattern, just little pieces of color across the stone. He dimmed the lamps and let one window stay open. Cool air flowed in like a second guest. The first guest arrived in silence, a man in soft sandals, holding a small clay bowl. Petronius offered him a cushion, no questions. The man nodded, sat, and placed his bowl before him. Inside just water, with 2 tiny green leaves floating. Petronius bowed gently. More guests followed. Some brought feathers, some brought coins from distant places. One guest brought a single sandal. He didn't explain, he didn't need to. The room grew quieter with each arrival. Soft music began, Marcia's fingers plucking slowly, like rain touching glass. A breeze moved through the open window, swaying the thin curtain. The scent of cypress and mint slowly reached each corner. Petronius remained standing, watching, listening. Some guests lay down, some simply closed their eyes and breathed. Some wept, softly, not loudly, just tears meeting silence. At the far edge, a woman whispered a lullaby to no one. Another man hummed the sound of wind. No words, just tones, soft and round and without sharp edges. Petronius let the night unfold as it wished. No structure, no finale, only the gentle unwinding of tension, like rope slowly loosening from a knot. And as the candles burned lower, one by one, guests fell into sleep, or something close to sleep, or something that came before sleep. Petronius sat finally. He placed his hands in his lap, closed his eyes, and let go, just a little. Told softly, slowly, for sleepy minds. The night had passed like a dream. No shouting, no clashing cups, no wildness, just soft breathing, slow string music, and the gentle hum of presence. Petronius woke not in his bed, but on a cushion in the atrium, his body curled slightly, his hand resting over a small feather someone had left, a red one, no bird he could name. He sat up with care. The room was still dim, the oil lamps flickering in their final moments. A few guests remained asleep, or maybe just still. He didn't wake them. He rose slowly, stepped over silk and pillows and made his way to the fountain. The water was cold, sharp and welcome. He splashed his face quietly, feeling it run down his neck and along his collarbone. Nothing like water to remind you you're still a body, still a man, still here. He glanced around the room. Petals still scattered. One cushion was damp. Maybe someone had spilled wine or maybe tears. Either one, he thought, was fine. One was ritual, the other release. Both were sacred in their own way. He lit a stick of incense again. Just one. Today's scent, sandalwood, grounding. Earthy, quiet, like stepping into bare feet again after a festival. Yes, that's what today felt like. A return to simplicity. As he tidied the space gently, folding fabric and collecting empty bowls, he noticed a scroll left behind, rolled loosely, tied with thin black thread. He opened it slowly. Inside was a short poem. Only 3 lines. We forget ourselves in gold, but find ourselves in ash. You gave me both. He held the scroll in his hand for a long moment. Someone had found what they needed. Maybe 2 people. He tucked the scroll into his robe and moved to the kitchen. His cook, Lytis, had already begun preparing the morning meal. Warm barley cakes, dates split, and stuffed with soft cheese, and a bowl of sweet spiced milk gently heating over coals. You look like the god Janus, Lytis muttered with a grin. Petronius blinked. 2 faces, one watching the night, one waiting for the morning. He laughed softly, taking a cup of milk and sitting on a small stool. Lytis always spoke like that, like a man who'd lived a dozen lives, but only in kitchens. They ate together, not speaking much, just chewing, just swallowing, just letting the silence stay full. Later that morning, a message arrived. A boy no older than 10, barefoot panting. He handed Petronius a folded wax tablet. The seal, a fish. He broke it gently. Inside was a request from a Roman matron of high rank. She wanted a different kind of gathering. One for young couples, newly married, nervous. She wanted a night to show them how softness lives in love. An odd phrase, but Petronius understood. He made a quick note. He'd need educators, but not the scholarly kind. People who knew how to touch gently, to speak without fear, to let others discover their own rhythm. He would have to visit old acquaintances, people who knew the slow arts. First stop, he thought, Gaia. Gaia was older now. In her youth, she'd been called Venus with eyes closed, not for her looks, but for the way she moved, like she knew pleasure without needing to see it. She lived near the old theater, in a shaded domus, surrounded by rosemary bushes. Petronius walked there slowly, feeling the heat rise under his feet. Rome was waking up, vendors calling out, sandals slapping stone, children chasing dogs through alleys. The city always remembered how to be alive. Gaia opened the door in a silk wrap the color of olive oil. Her hair was silver now, tied back in a single knot, but her smile, her smile hadn't aged a day. Planning again, are we? She teased. I'm always planning, he sighed. But today, it's for the gentle. She poured them both small cups of warm wine with a twist of citrus peel. They sat in her courtyard under the fig tree. Petronius explained the request, how the young couples would be shy, unsure, afraid of not knowing what they should already know. Gaia tapped the side of her cup. They don't need guidance, she said. They need permission, to ask, to stop, to laugh. He nodded. Yes, that's exactly it. She agreed to come, to speak, to guide, to demonstrate if needed, but softly, without pressure, without performance, just presence, just touch, without taking. From there, Petronius visited a few others. A sculptor who taught his students to understand curves with their hands, before their eyes. A poetess who wrote verses meant to be whispered while touching someone's back. And a dancer who only performed in silence. He gathered them all, slowly, like herbs before a feast. Back at home he made sketches, not of bodies, but of gestures, hands reaching, not grasping, eyes meeting, then closing, lips moving without sound. He wasn't designing an orgy, he was designing trust. He chose the venue carefully, a bathhouse no longer used by the public. Quiet, marble, and echoing softly. He imagined each room filled not with laughter or moaning, but with breathing, sighing, resting. He made a list, cushions that smelled of lemon, warm towels folded into bundles, bowls of olive oil mixed with chamomile. No statues, no columns, no gold, only softness, only hush. And when the evening came, he would not wear his fine robe, just linen, unbleached, like cloud left out to dry. Yes, that would feel right. But tonight was still far away. There was still time, time to rest, to nap, to watch the pigeons in the eaves and listen to the wind pull at the shutters. He curled up on his balcony in the pale sun, wrapped in a thin blanket, the scroll from last night beside him, eyes half closed, the city humming in the distance. He did not plan for sleep, but sleep came anyway, softly, quietly, like a whisper with no sender. The light had changed again. Petronius stirred with the warmth of late afternoon across his cheek. The gentle rustle of leaves, someone brushing past the vines, a quiet knock. He sat up slowly, one shoulder stiff, a sign of a long sleep or perhaps a dream too heavy. The scroll still lay beside him, unbothered. He picked it up and held it for a moment, then set it on a tray of figs. Outside his door, a familiar voice. Wakeful yet? It was Marcus, his steward, friend. The man who knew when to knock and when to vanish. Almost, Petronius murmured. Then I'll knock again later, Marcus said, without irony. Petronius chuckled. No need. Come in. But slowly, I'm still reassembling myself. Marcus stepped in, carrying a tablet, and a basket. Ah, the tablet. That meant a list. The basket meant something edible. Or something with petals. Messages, Marcus said softly, placing the wax-covered tablet down with care. And these, he lifted a folded linen cloth from the basket, revealing 6 pale honey cakes. From a grateful guest. Petronius raised an eyebrow. Gratitude is delicious, he whispered, picking one up and taking a small bite. The honey had crystallized slightly at the edges, like sugar snow on a warm surface. They ate in silence, only the occasional sound of chewing, and a quiet bird outside in the basil bush. Anything urgent? Petronius finally asked, motioning to the tablet. Marcus, ever composed, nodded slightly. A senator's daughter is soon to wed. Her mother seeks your guidance, not for an event, but for a conversation she doesn't know how to have. Petronius sighed softly. So many people afraid to speak, and yet so much spoken in rooms like mine. He dipped his fingers in a bowl of rosewater. Well then, let's plan a conversation. But the day wouldn't allow all softness. There was a visit scheduled to the Domus of Hostilius, a wine merchant with too much silver and not enough charm. He fancied himself a patron of taste, which usually meant too much of everything all at once. Petronius hated cluttered rooms, but he never said no to information. A litter had been arranged. 4 strong men, steps perfectly synchronized. Petronius leaned back, the linen curtains swaying slightly, as the city passed in fragments. A woman scrubbing a bowl, a boy playing with a wooden sword, a vendor roasting chestnuts. Rome, always humming, never sleeping. Hostilius's home smelled of saffron and vinegar. He tried too hard. The atrium had 3 fountains instead of 1, and statues of nymphs doing things no nymph would ever do. Petronius, the host boomed, as always too loud, too quick. Come, come, you'll love what I've added since last. I'm sure I will, Petronius said softly, not meaning it, not denying it, just passing the moment like a pebble across water. Hostilius showed him a new drapery, embroidered with silver thread, a peacock feather pattern. Petronius blinked slowly. It's very reflective, he offered. Hostilius beamed, as it should be. Desire must dazzle. Petronius smiled politely, but should never blind, he murmured. He walked slowly through the rooms, noting things silently. Heavy bronze incense burners, curtains dyed too red, and a faint sense of something desperate. At the end, Hostilius leaned in. I want you to plan something, not a party, not a gathering, something more unforgettable, something that tastes like gold but ends like thunder. Petronius tilted his head. Are you seeking memory, or legend? Hostilius paused. Both. Ah, Petronius said. Then you'll need patience, and quiet. Hostilius looked puzzled, as expected. Petronius left soon after, a scroll in his sleeve, and the scent of too much amber clinging to his robe. He'd need a cleansing bath, and silence, lots of silence. Back home, the courtyard was calm, no servants rushing, just Marcus pruning a small laurel tree, quietly humming something without melody. Marcus, Petronius said, I have to cleanse a olive oil and mint leaves, yes, and something silent, perhaps Sappho. The bath was drawn, warm, fragrant. Petronius stepped in slowly, letting his body sink beneath the surface. He closed his eyes. He remembered something his mother used to say. Always soak until your thoughts quiet down. Today the thoughts had thickened. Too many favors, too many tastes, too many fabrics. But here, in this water, he remembered who he was again. Later that evening, with oil on his skin and his mind calm again, he stepped onto the balcony once more. The city was turning blue, that particular Roman blue, the one just before twilight swallows all color. Yes, this was his hour. He opened a scroll from the basket earlier. Another message, short. He found his voice. She found her answer. You made space for both. He closed the scroll, placed it on the table beside a single fig. No need to keep everything, but this. Then, another knock, but softer this time. Gaia, I was walking past, she lied. I have wine, he replied. Neither believed the other. Both were content with that. They drank. Not to feel something, but to feel nothing. And they watched the lamps flicker in the alleyways below. What do you dream of now? She asked. He smiled. Not pleasure, not fame, just comfort that hums. Gaia nodded. That's what the world lacks. And they sat quietly, until the stars appeared, one by one, just like names in an old story, softly told. Told with care and hush. The wine had settled. Petronius leaned against the terrace wall, a cushion behind his spine. The air around him smelled faintly of crushed mint and fig bark. Gaia had long since gone, taking with her a silence he liked. He didn't move for some time. The night was not fully dark yet, just hovering there between color and shadow. Petronius looked at his fingers, still stained slightly from the ink he used earlier, to draft a menu for a senator's cousin's celebration of Venus's blessing. Or as people really called it, an excuse to gather, feast, and flirt. But even such nights needed structure, soft, invisible structure, and that was his gift. Tonight though there was another engagement, not grand, not public, but a rehearsal. Not everyone could step into his world naturally, especially not the new ones. And so, in a little villa not far from the Sabura, a few select initiates waited, nervous, perfumed and poorly timed. Petronius would have to fix that, gently, quietly, without a word too sharp. The moon was just starting to rise when he arrived. The house was modest. Clay lamps flickered along the corridor, too bright. A little too much myrrh in the air. He entered without knocking. The door had been left open. Inside, a young man was pacing, tall, pale, smelling faintly of cinnamon and worry. Petronius raised a hand. Breathe, he whispered. The man froze, then slowly inhaled. Not terrible. Name? Petronius asked, glancing at a list. Varus, the young man said, trying to bow and stumble at once. Petronius smiled gently. We're not in a temple, Varus. Oh, I just... Yes, Petronius gestured. Sit, watch. Two others were already practicing in the inner room. One, a woman named Licinia. Fluid, quiet, eyes like tired oceans. She moved like she was born under drapes. The other, Gaius, a little too eager, his tunic too fine, his gestures too large. But he could learn. Start again, Petronius whispered, stepping behind a curtain, letting them forget he was there. He watched. Licinia poured wine slowly into a cup, then passed it with her eyes, not her hands. Gaius smiled. Too fast, too toothy. But he caught the tone in her gaze and slowed. Yes. Petronius liked this part. The shaping of unspoken things. The sculpting of silence. The lesson lasted an hour. No one spoke above a murmur. Movements softened. Even Gaius's laughter finally stopped sounding like a goat falling from a cart. Progress. Afterward they sat in a circle. No chairs, just soft cushions and a tray of grapes in the center. Petronius took a single fig. Why do you think people come to us? He asked gently. Gaius opened his mouth. Petronius raised a hand. Not the answer you think sounds clever, the one that feels like a whisper on your skin. There was silence. Then, Varus spoke. Because the world outside is too loud. Petronius looked up. Yes, that's the closest I've heard in weeks. He left them with a scroll of instructions. Not rules, suggestions, rhythms, reminders of eye contact, posture, patience. He did not say goodbye. That wasn't his way. He simply vanished between two hanging veils. Like smoke. Outside, the moon was higher now. He walked slowly along the cobbled path, the air cooler. This was his favorite time to walk. Past shuttered shops, past temples with locked bronze doors, past fountains gurgling to no one. He passed a beggar woman who simply nodded. He nodded back. They'd seen each other often enough. Neither ever spoke. By the time he reached his own villa, a warm light spilled from one upper window. Marcus was still awake. Of course, always awake. Inside, on a wooden tray, two letters, one sealed with green wax, the other with purple. Petronius examined both. The purple meant royalty. He placed it aside, too early in the night to ruin his calm. The green, however, he cracked it open. A neat hand, soft parchment. I have seen what you made. I've heard the silence between your moments. I have a space. Come see it. I want it to breathe like your evenings do. No name, but he knew. Sabina, a woman of influence, and a face like marble warmed by breath. Petronius stared at the flame in his oil lamp, watching it sway, just slightly. The wine was waiting on the sideboard. Tonight, he drank alone. 2 sips only, nothing more. Let the taste linger, like memory. He stepped out onto his balcony again. Below, the street was still, no footsteps, no music, just Rome, breathing. Petronius closed his eyes. He thought of Varus, and Gaius, and Licinia, of fabrics not yet chosen, of perfumes not yet blended, of people who would soon move like dancers without choreography, just rhythm and whisper. He smiled. Tonight was not about planning. It was about pausing, and in a life full of preparation, pausing was a rare art. He took one more sip of wine, then returned indoors. No lights, just the cool stone under his feet, and the hush of linen. As he slipped under the blanket, sleep came softly, like lace falling in water, like a dream, still folding itself. And even in sleep his fingers twitched, as if still arranging the night. The next morning, Petronius woke just before sunrise, that half moment before the city stirred, when the sky wore its faintest blue, and all the gods still slept. He didn't move at first, just listened, to the creak of the wooden ceiling, to the gentle clink of wind catching a loose lantern, to the far-off yawn of a rooster, who wasn't quite ready either. He whispered to no one. One more breath, and then, he rose. Today wasn't a performance, nor a lesson. It was a visit. Sabina's letter still lay on the corner of his table, folded neatly, still faintly scented, something soft, like pressed violets, and cool linen. He washed slowly. Warmed water, a few drops of oil, a linen cloth, patted the skin, not rubbed, no rush, no noise. By the time he dressed deep plum tunic, light embroidery, no jewels, the sun had just barely touched the horizon. Marcus had already left. Of course, always 2 steps ahead, but never asking questions. The kind of servant who felt more like furniture that listened. Outside, the streets began to hum, softly. Vendors, setting up. Children chasing imaginary monsters. Old men, throwing dice with the same stories as yesterday. The domus of Sabina was not far, but secluded. A narrow garden path veiled by ivy and guarded by 2 marble owls. Petronius smiled as he passed them. Inside, it was cool. Not just in temperature, in tone. Sabina was there, waiting. Not on a throne, not behind a curtain, just standing. In a robe the color of old rose petals. Hair pinned but a little loose. Like she wanted it that way. Petronius, she said softly. I wasn't sure you'd come. You left the gate open, he replied. A tiny smile flickered at her mouth. She turned and walked slowly, barefoot into the atrium. Petronius followed. No servants, no torches, just filtered sunlight bouncing off soft yellow walls. You said you had a space, he began. She stopped and extended her hand to the right. They entered a small chamber, octagonal, with a dome overhead that opened to the sky like an eye that never blinked. The floor, mosaic, tiny tiles that shimmered like water, a design of swirling vines, figs, and fireflies. This, she said, was a bathing room once. I want it to be a room for pause, for slowing, for a gathering that doesn't feel like one. Petronius inhaled. The acoustics were gentle. Every footstep sounded wrapped in cloth. Yes, he closed his eyes and imagined the scene. 2 reclining couches, 1 bronze incense burner, a boy with a harp, who barely touched the strings, soft dishes, fig paste, melon, slivers of cheese wrapped in bay leaf, nothing red, nothing bright, and above them, silence dripping in from the oculus. He opened his eyes. Yes, he whispered. Sabina said nothing. Instead, she reached into a nearby chest and pulled out a folded square of fabric. From Alexandria, she said, woven by women who whisper to the cloth before each stitch. Petronius unfolded it slowly. It shimmered like morning dew, cool blue, touched by tiny threads of silver. For the table, she added, or the guest's shoulder. Petronius nodded. A pause. Then, may I ask something? Of course. Why do you want this? Sabina walked toward the center of the room and sat, cross-legged, still barefoot. I was born loud, she began. My father shouted. My brothers drank. My mother only whispered when she was afraid. Petronius sat beside her, mirroring her pose. I want to own something soft, she said. Something calm, that doesn't ask anything but presence. Petronius looked up through the dome. A single bird fluttered by, and for a moment, time didn't move. When they left the room, he didn't promise anything. He didn't name a price. He simply said, "It will be ready." Sabina smiled with her eyes. He returned home through back alleys. The market was noisy now, but the noise washed past him like wind. At home, Marcus had left food, pear slices, soaked in honey, warm bread and chilled milk. Petronius ate slowly, barefoot in the kitchen. He scribbled notes while chewing. Sabina, intimate gathering, dome room, vines and shadows, 5 guests, 1 musician, no lamps, all scentless, except cedar. Then, he took out a blank scroll. This one was for the next commission, the big one, for Senator Didius, a summer night banquet in the countryside, theme, echoes of old Troy, and, he sighed, this one would take more layers, not just planning, storytelling. He needed to craft not just a gathering, but a memory that had never truly existed. So he wrote, entrance guests, led through hallway lined with sheer fabric, backlit to flicker like torches at sea. The scroll grew longer. He poured a small cup of wine, not to drink, just to smell while thinking. His ink dried slowly. Outside, the birds finally stopped their chatter. A shadow passed across his window. Marcus was back, holding a bundle wrapped in soft wool. Petronius unwrapped it. Inside, 3 tiny glass bottles, one filled with rose, one with bitter orange, and one clear. Rainwater from the first storm last month, Marcus said quietly. You asked. Petronius touched the bottle. This would be used for the linens. Rain-scented sleep, perfect for Sabina's dome room. Night would return again soon. He hadn't yet rested from his morning. But Rome didn't ask if you were tired. And Petronius, he had more to sketch. Another scroll, another little corner of silence he would help build. Gently, gently, with lace and figs, with whispers and soft steps. Until the whole city forgot for just one night how loud it truly was. The day began its slow stretch, like an old cat warming its spine beneath the Roman sun. Petronius blinked into the soft light bleeding through his silk-draped windows. His bed felt heavier this morning, not with sleep, but with memory. The scent of Sabina's perfumed scroll still lingered faintly in his mind, like the last note of a lullaby hummed too quietly to recall. Her room of silence. Yes, that had been different. Special. And today, as his fingers gently searched for his sandals with sleepy movements, he felt it, the lingering softness of that visit shaping how he would move through this day. He wasn't rushing. Not today. No sudden plans. No grand feast on the books. But that never really meant rest for a Roman orgy planner. Not truly. Because in the quiet spaces, that's where the real work lived. Petronius sat at his writing desk, tracing the grain of the wood with the tip of his finger. What if, he whispered to himself. The guests entered the atrium to silence. No lyre, just the sound of wind over water. He scratched something on parchment and leaned back, sipping watered wine from a cool red clay cup. Marcus had already placed a bowl of soaked almonds and thin sliced pears beside him, always gentle, always silent. This part of the day. He always loved it. It was when the city still murmured and hadn't yet begun to shout. Outside, sandal straps tapped over cobblestone. A distant pot dropped. Children shouted, not in anger, but in that careless, wild joy reserved only for those too small to know rules. Petronius stood and walked toward the courtyard at the heart of his domus. A small fountain trickled lazily. The water caught glints of light, and turned them into quiet gold. There, he found something unexpected. On the marble bench, a scroll, bound in green ribbon, no seal. He glanced around. Marcus wasn't nearby. He unrolled it slowly. "My dear Petronius," it began, "your presence is requested by Julia Messalina for an early summer garden banquet. No formal entertainment, no musicians, only good conversation and quiet arrangements. You are to design every detail. Theme, whispers in white." Ah, Messalina. That name always came like a whisper, and a warning. She wasn't just any hostess. She was a storm with pearls in her hair, younger than most senators' wives, yet with the eyes of someone who had lived 10 lives in silence. Petronius folded the scroll, slowly, carefully. He knew what this meant. She was inviting not just his service but his mind. And when a woman like Messalina offered that kind of invitation, you didn't just light a few candles and call the flower man. He turned on his heel and moved, barefoot, to his chamber. Within minutes he had dressed, this time in ivory linen, trimmed with sage green. Nothing too rich, but not common. A color scheme that told the world, "I am careful." Marcus appeared, somehow at the perfect time. "We're going to the Palatine," Petronius said, lifting the scroll. Marcus gave a quiet nod, handed him a small fan for the walk, and together they stepped into the pale Roman morning. As they walked through the winding lanes past hawkers and priests, beggars and schoolboys reciting Virgil with chalk on their hands, Petronius mentally composed. What did whispers in white mean? White stone, white flowers, or white silence? He pictured the garden of Messalina's villa. Yes, he'd been there before. Sloping terraces, citrus trees, fountains shaped like hands pouring from jugs. No music. That was bold. It meant the party wasn't hiding behind distractions. This wasn't for celebration. It was for secrets. A place to talk in coded glances and half-laughed lies. By the time they reached the villa, he had already outlined 3 arrangements in his head. But stepping inside, everything changed. The garden had overgrown slightly. Not wild, but relaxed. Lemon trees bowed as if in prayer. The grass was still damp. Messalina appeared not from the house but from the hedge. Truly, she slipped out from a narrow green passage with a fig in her hand and not a single guard in sight. "Petronius," she said, licking juice from her finger. "You've come early. You summoned early," he replied with a gentle smile. She looked different, not in robe, in a man's tunic, hair in a single braid over her shoulder. No makeup, no performance. He loved that, the honesty of it. She gestured toward a stone bench beside a low basin of floating peony petals. "I don't want anything loud," she said, her voice just above the wind. "Nothing that has to be clapped for." He nodded. "What is it for?" She smiled, but didn't answer. Instead she lifted a small pouch from her lap and handed it to him. Inside, white sand, faintly scented with something mint perhaps. Or "I want this under the seats," she whispered. "So when people shift it releases fragrance." Petronius blinked. That was genius. "And on the tables?" he asked. She shook her head. "No tables." "What then?" She pointed to a low cluster of marble pedestals. 1 dish per pedestal. Every guest gets 5. That's all. Drinks? Water. Rose wine. Nothing red. Petronius nodded again. His mind had begun building already. There would be cushions made of pressed silk, cooled in lavender water beforehand. There would be shadows. Lots of shadows cast not by torches, but white drapes, hung from olive branches. There would be soft sounds, gravel underfoot, wind brushing grape leaves. Maybe even a servant rubbing parchment for ambiance, like someone writing far away. They walked the space together, she barefoot, he calculating every angle, every step, every potential clash of texture. When they stopped beside a shallow pool, she said, "I'm not doing this for guests." "Not really." He turned, waited, let her speak in her own time. "I need to speak with someone, in a way that doesn't feel like we're in Rome." Petronius swallowed gently. He understood. This wasn't a party, it was a disguise, a sanctuary dressed as pleasure. He placed his hand over his chest, fingers spread lightly. "I will make it happen," he said simply. When he left her villa, the sun was higher, and the heat had begun to rise like a soft exhale from the stones. He returned home in silence. Marcus followed like a shade. Once inside, Petronius didn't go to his writing room. He went to the storage chamber. He needed to touch materials: white linen, pressed silver, stone burnished bowls, small flasks carved like fruit. Yes, he sat in the middle of the room and let his eyes drift over the stacks. He began pulling items one by one, placing them into a semicircle around him, like a shrine. Then he started arranging them: 5 cups, 3 bowls, 2 folded cloths, 1 dish with a spoon carved from deer horn. Everything white, or off-white, or moonlit in color. The only sound was the soft, steady scratch of a stylus as he noted textures, weights, temperatures. Marcus returned with a small platter of steamed dates and spiced milk. He placed it gently on the edge of the circle and left. Petronius ate slowly, 1 date at a time. No hurry. When dusk began to hum through the lattice windows, he stood and spoke aloud. "I need to visit the dye merchant at Aventine." Marcus returned in less than a breath, shoes in hand. Together they stepped into twilight. The Aventine district was already shifting toward its evening mood, shutters closing, children running slower, dogs curling at the base of walls. The dye merchant, an older man with fingers permanently stained, greeted Petronius with a bow. "I need something white," Petronius said, "but not bright, more like the color of silence." The man nodded and led him to a rear room. From a chest lined with cedar, he pulled a bolt of fabric that looked like snow lit by candlelight. Petronius touched it. Yes, soft, weighted, subtle. He bought 10 yards. By the time he returned home, the stars had begun to gather like gossiping widows in the night sky. Inside, the air was cooler. Marcus had lit 2 small lamps and placed petals in the fountain. Petronius sat again at his desk. He opened a new scroll. "Banquet for Julia Messalina," he wrote. And beneath it, whispers and white. Then he began listing: guest entry to be single file, cushions chilled before seating, linen sprayed with mint water, glass bowls of still water between every 3rd cushion, fragrance released by pressure, not flame, attendants to wear robes tied at shoulder, not waist, 1 harp plucked once every 100 heartbeats, no more. All lights from clay saucers with milk wax. He wrote until his fingers ached, until the moon tipped over the wall and stared into his window, until Marcus placed a blanket on his shoulders and didn't say a word. Petronius breathed in slowly. This was the kind of gathering Rome needed. Not louder, not richer, just softer. A place where even secrets could fall asleep. By now you've spent so much time with us in the heart of Rome's softest, strangest corners, that it's starting to feel familiar. The buzz of sandal straps over warm stone. The light tapping of stylus on wax tablet. Pause. The hush of secrets behind thick velvet curtains, all of it wrapping around us like a well-worn blanket. And tonight we follow that warm trail even further, deeper into the late afternoon, where preparations for the evening's grand event are beginning to ripple through the villa, like a slow tide. It's quiet. But not empty, never empty. Beneath every silence, a soft hum of action. The kind that doesn't shout or stomp but tiptoes, arranges, folds and fluffs. Now let's return to Marcus, our planner of strange delights. Pause. He's been busy, yes, but he hasn't lost focus. After all, it's not just the nobles he must please tonight. It's the entire mood of the villa. The feeling of being suspended in time, floating somewhere between the moment wine is poured and the first sweet sip. And what's this? He's moved toward the triclinium parvum now. That's the smaller dining room, not the grand hall. Not every orgy or gathering, as he sometimes calls it, needs to be a thunderous affair. Some nights it's all about the slow burn, the whispered laughter in a room just big enough for 12. There's a certain scent drifting here. Honey and violets, gently crushed into the warm surface of a marble table. It's an old trick. The smell isn't strong. It barely kisses your nose, but it works. Romans believed fragrance made a room more intelligent, more inviting, like it could hold your thoughts and soften your opinions. Marcus dips his fingers into the oil jar, gently swirls the mixture. Pause. His face stays calm, neutral, but his mind is ticking. Ticking like a soft bronze clock in the background. Because this part is tricky. The guests. Not all guests are created equal in a Roman orgy. Nope, some are expected to talk more than they touch, others to observe without comment, and a few, well, they are there simply to be beautiful, and that's not just about looks. No, it's about stillness, the grace of being calm, of staying composed while others speak and spiral around them. Like a sculpture you can admire, but shouldn't touch, unless invited. Marcus has been doing this long enough to read people before they even step inside. He remembers last spring's gathering, when a wealthy senator brought his latest mistress, and expected her to, well, behave like his previous one. She did not. The result? Let's just say a certain tapestry needed to be replaced. Pause. Not because of anything scandalous. No, but because she spilled the honeyed pine nuts right into the woven image of Hercules. The stains never came out. So today Marcus is extra careful. He's written out a little plan. Nothing formal. No. Just lines of chalk on a dark wooden board. It's tucked away under the tablecloth, unseen to all but him. A quiet map of emotions and placements. Who sits where? Who lies beside whom? Whose temper might flare if placed next to a certain general who insists on quoting Plato during dessert. He pauses. There's still time to make a few changes. He calls over Livia, his assistant, calm as a quiet stream. Her eyes are sharp though, always watching. Marcus gives her a small nod. They don't need many words. Not anymore. She lifts the tablecloth, reads the plan and nods back. Pause. And then, she walks away silently to adjust the cushions. Now cushions may sound simple, but in this world, they're everything. The softness, the temperature, the scent, each detail carries a message. Want someone to feel admired. Lavender-scented cushion. Want them to be lulled into relaxation. Rose water and goose feathers. But, for passion, that's where the musky ones come out. Dusted with powdered amber and cinnamon. Pause. And only just warm enough to suggest they've been waiting for you. While Livia prepares the physical layout, Marcus visits the musicians. Yes, music, perhaps the most important part of all. Not too loud, never too structured, no sharp notes, just flutes and strings drifting like soft perfume across marble floors. He speaks to the lead lyrist, an older man named Tycho, who has been playing in such gatherings since the time of Claudius. Tycho, half-blind but still precise, listens to Marcus's tone more than his words. Like the sound of silk falling. Marcus says, but with a little warmth at the end, like a candle going out, not with wind but with understanding. Tycho nods. Pause, and they begin to play, testing out a tune made not of melody but of mood. Outside, the sky begins to dim, just slightly. Rome's light doesn't vanish all at once. It fades like wine in water, slowly, calmly. And that's when the servants begin preparing the gustaccio. Oh yes, the appetizer round. No bread yet. Bread comes later. This is for teasing, tempting. Small dishes in tiny bowls, candied olives, anchovy paste, folded with pear, dates stuffed with pine nuts and soaked in honeyed wine. But nothing too heavy. No garlic yet. Garlic's for the end, when people want to chase away sleep, not welcome it. The platters are shaped like seashells tonight, chosen specifically by Marcus to suggest softness, intimacy. The sea, a small nod to Venus, you could say. She's not always invited by name, but her mood is always expected. Now while others prepare the tastes and sounds, Marcus turns to the baths. Yes, the bathing hour. Not every guest will want one, but for those who do, the experience must be perfect. Not too hot, never too cold. Oils on the water's surface must be spread thin, never greasy. Towels must smell of chamomile. And the walls, they're painted with scenes of gentle myths tonight. Leda, and the swan, Narcissus by the pond. And yes, a sleepy-eyed Bacchus reclining on grape leaves. Guests will arrive soon. Their sandals will be dusted with travel, their minds still clinging to the concerns of the day. Marcus's job, to strip those away, gently, layer by layer. He walks the path from the triclinium to the baths, back and forth, twice. Not to check, no, but to feel. He watches how the light falls on the floor, how the air moves between rooms. Are there any drafts? Any sharp smells? Pause. Nothing must startle, not even the air. He pauses by the atrium, looks up. Ah, the light well is open. Good. A small breeze dances through it, carrying the faint smell of figs and damp marble. He closes his eyes. It's nearly time. Outside you can hear the faint clip-clop of hooves. Not many. Just enough to signal that the night is near. That velvet hour between preparation and performance. Livia returns. She gives a nod. Everything is in place. Marcus doesn't smile. Not because he isn't pleased, but because calm is better than joy right now. He closes his scroll, tucks it away, adjusts his tunic, walks to the doorway. Soon, the guests will arrive, and when they do, they won't just be walking into a room. They'll be stepping into a world. Marcus built with silence and shadows, and the soft weight of anticipation. And tomorrow they may forget names. They may forget who touched their arm or which song played after the fourth sip of wine. But they will remember the feeling of floating. And that, dear friend, is what Marcus lives for. Not the spectacle, not the scandal, pause, but the softness of a night that feels like a dream, half remembered, and always just out of reach. Ah, the air has changed now. You can almost feel it settle over the villa like a warm blanket of twilight. The city beyond the walls is still buzzing. But inside here, it's different. Everything is slower, deeper, calmer, as if time itself is walking barefoot. Marcus adjusts his belt, gently. Not because he needs to, no. He always dresses perfectly, but it's the rhythm, the little habits that make the night flow smoothly. A tiny flick of the fingers here, a soft hum to himself there. Nothing loud, nothing sharp. Just motions born from years of planning, of knowing that every little detail, even the tiniest one, can shift the entire night. Outside the atrium, sandals begin to whisper across stone. Guests have begun to arrive, not in herds. No, in soft waves. Some alone, some in pair, all of them washed in subtle oils and the last rays of golden Roman sunlight. Ah, there's Publius again, always early, always humming the same tune he claims is from the East, though no one's ever heard it before. He leans on the threshold, waiting, not quite crossing it, as if testing the mood before entering. Marcus sees him, gives the smallest nod, and Publius steps forward. Just like that, the evening has begun. Pause. Now, there's a flow to Roman evenings like this. They don't begin with grand announcements or trumpet blasts. No, they slide into motion, like a barge pushed off a calm shore. The first guests don't head straight for the triclinium. No. They drift, like perfume in warm air, pausing by the mosaic of Neptune in the floor, pretending not to notice the polished bronze mirror beside it. Livia, calm and graceful, offers them dates, just one each. A gesture, not a meal, something to ease the tension in their jaws. And to sweeten the first words they speak. Marcus watches from a distance, always watching, always If he's done his job correctly, he won't need to speak much tonight. The house will speak for him. And slowly, gently, the guests begin to find their places. Flya, with her lilac-dyed gown and rose-scented hair, settles into the left couch, not because she's told to, but because the cushion smells just how she likes it. It's not magic, it's memory. Marcus remembered what she liked last time, and the time before, and the one before that. There's something comforting in being remembered, don't you think? Even if no one says it aloud, others follow. Gaius, with his sharp chin and nervous fingers, finds his place near the corner, away from the heat of the lamps. He doesn't speak much, but that's all right. His presence is calm, like a book no one opens, but everyone likes having around. And then, there's Celine. Ah, Celine. She doesn't walk into a room. She melts into it. Her voice is never loud, but you always hear it. Her laughter has a softness that feels like velvet brushing against your ear. No one knows who invited her. Some think she's Marcus's cousin. Others believe she's simply always invited. She glides past the guests without a word, finds her seat in the center, and just waits. That's her power. Stillness. Marcus feels the temperature of the room drop, just a little. Not cold, no, just cooler. Pause. Now, the first cup of wine is poured, but not by Marcus. That would be too visible. Instead, Livia brings the tray, silver with small handles, shaped like ivy branches. She offers it to each guest in a slow circle, never breaking eye contact, never rushing. They sip, just once, not to drink, but to mark the shift. The night is no longer preparing, it's happening. And with that, the first course begins. Ah, mulsum. Honeyed wine with pepper and herbs. It coats the throat, relaxes the tongue. Paired with tiny cheese pastries. And spiced almonds wrapped in fig leaves. Nothing heavy yet. The point is to tease the body into awareness, to remind the senses that they exist. Some speak, others just chew slowly. The music continues, light and circular, never quite starting, never quite stopping. Marcus stands near the entrance, hands behind his back, watching every blink, every tilt of the head. When Lucilla drops her napkin, he knows it's not an accident. She's testing attention, seeing who will rise to the moment. And it's Germanicus, who notices. He picks it up, not with flourish, but gently, offering it with a quiet look. Lucilla smiles. That's what Marcus wanted. He relaxes, just a little. The food changes again, this time a tray of cooled oysters wrapped in mint leaves. An odd choice, some would say. But tonight's air is warm, and the salt is needed. It stirs the body without rushing it. Conversation begins to ripple, nothing deep, yet. They speak of dreams. Dreams they've had lately. That's how many Roman gatherings began. Not with politics or philosophy, but with dreams. They are soft, strange, easy to slip into without defense. One man speaks of walking through olive groves, with feet made of glass. Another tells of a woman with eyes full of stars, but no voice. Livia passes behind them, replenishing fruit bowls, adjusting the oil lamps. The light grows dimmer, more golden. The night is folding itself inward, like a cat curling into sleep. Marcus moves from his station, quietly now, drifting along the walls, checking the airflow between chambers. The bathhouse attendants are ready. 2 guests have signaled their interest in bathing, a subtle touch to the earlobe. That's the signal tonight. The attendants, young, trained, silent, lead them away. Nothing is spoken aloud. It all flows like choreography. Marcus returns to the heart of the triclinium, watches as the second wine cup is poured. This one deeper, richer, red as plum skin. The conversations deepen. Now they speak of memory, of childhood games, favorite smells, the sound of rain on clay roofs. Celine speaks of a thunderstorm she once watched from the edge of a temple in Delphi, how the lightning looked like God scribbling on the sky. No one replies. They just sip. The third course arrives, and it is delicate. Stuffed quail with rosemary, served in tiny bowls carved from bread. Guests are encouraged to eat the bowl too, a sign that the night is meant to be devoured whole, not dissected. Marcus hears laughter, soft, true, from the belly, not the throat. He knows now that the night has settled into its skin. The third wine arrives, mixed with myrrh and pomegranate. It tastes of dusk, and now the musicians shift their tune, slightly, barely noticeable to those not listening. But Marcus hears it. The tempo slows, becomes more circular. The fourth course is not food. It is scent. Small bowls of heated oils are placed in the corners. Not for touch, just for smell. Vanilla, amber, almond, smoke. The guests breathe in, eyes closing without realizing. They are being guided gently now, into the soft fog between appetite and dream. And finally, the fifth wine. It is served in black cups, unmarked, warm. No words accompany it, just the cup, and silence. One by one the guests drink, and one by one they lean back, not asleep, not awake, just between. Marcus watches, he's done his work, but the night isn't over. No, it's only just arriving, and so, he steps back, and lets it happen. He walks through the corridor, silent, his sandals making no sound, past the fountain, past the wall where ivy climbs slowly. Like the thoughts of a tired mind, he goes to the back room, and there waits the surprise. No orgy would be complete without the unexpected. But Marcus doesn't believe in chaos. No, he believes in gentle tilts, quiet nudges. Tonight, the surprise is not a person, not a performance, it's a room, a hidden one, opened only for this night. Inside, the floor is soft with fur, the ceiling low, a room built to make you whisper. Guests will be invited one by one, not told where they're going. Inside there's no food, no wine, just a scent, just a sound, and a single story, told aloud by an old woman, seated in the center, speaking of lovers turned into trees, of rivers that remember, of stars that fall in love with shadows, and slowly, the guests will listen, and forget themselves. Marcus smiles, just once, the night has begun, and it will never be remembered the same way by anyone. But all will agree, it was soft, it was strange, and it felt like floating. Soft steps echo on polished marble, as if the floor is holding its breath. The late hours have begun now, and with them, the feeling of weightlessness settles across the villa, like fine mist, not the kind that chills you, but the kind that makes you forget time has a shape. Marcus returns to the main hall, walking in a slow, curved path, never straight. Romans believed straight lines disturbed energy at night, so he honors that. A subtle arc with every step, soft as candlelight. The triclinium is quieter now. The laughter has dimmed into sighs. The cups rest on their sides. The music no longer played but hummed, almost instinctively, by a lyrist half asleep near the corner. A few of the guests have moved. Not far, just a shift in their cushions, a turning of the body towards someone else, a lean into the warm light of the oil lamps. They are not in a rush. That is the thing about nights like these. No one wants to be first to leave, first to stir, first to speak. They are floating together. A little boat made of silk, drifting on a dark, still sea. Marcus breathes in, softly. The scent is holding. Still almond. Still rosemary. Still the faintest trace of fig from the earlier course. He nods once to Livia. She understands. The bowls of cooled water are brought in now. Not to drink, but to touch. To dip a finger. To smooth across a wrist. To refresh the body without waking it. Livia offers one to Celine first. Celine, still and smiling, lets her fingertips linger in the bowl, just long enough to make a ripple, just long enough that others notice. And then, one by one, others follow. Not a ritual, not a performance, just an act, repeated, echoed, shared. The oil lamps are trimmed slightly. The corners of the room melt into shadows. Not black, no, but bronze. The color of dusk caught in old coins. The room is now ready for the next phase. Not action, not movement, but release. You see, by now, the guests have stopped trying to impress, trying to outwit, trying to shine. The night has worn down their masks, gently, like waves smoothing glass. And now, Marcus releases the birds. He does it quietly, a signal to the servant by the west corridor. No words, just a turn of the wrist. A moment later, small doors open, and 3 doves flutter into the air. Not white, no, that would be too obvious. These are ash gray, with feathers that shimmer faintly. Only under flame, they fly once, twice, and then perch silently above the guests, watching, like memory with wings. Someone gasps, softly. Another smiles. No one claps. No one speaks. They just see. Marcus walks the edge of the room, letting his fingers graze the marble wall. He is counting the breaths of the guests. Yes, that's how he measures success. Not in laughter, not in applause, but in how evenly, how slowly, they breathe. Tonight, they are breathing like statues. Still deep, forgetful. The birds stay. And now, the dancers enter. Not many, just two. A man and a woman, draped in silk so thin it clings like fog. They don't dance in the center. No. They dance along the walls, the edges, never stealing attention, only guiding it. Their bodies bend like grass in wind. No leaps, no stomps, just curves, soft curves, circles within circles. Their feet make no sound, their eyes stay lowered. It's not a show, it's a whisper. One of the guests, Publius, perhaps, leans forward, resting his cheek on his arm. Not to speak, but just to be closer to it. To them, to the shape they are making. The dancers do not speak. They don't need to. Their bodies carry stories, of storms that passed and left no rain, of letters never delivered, of kisses that never reached the mouth. Marcus doesn't watch the dancers, he watches the guests. They're almost ready now. For the last indulgence, not the loudest, not the most lavish, but the deepest. He gives another signal. This one is for the harpist. Yes, the one who hasn't played yet. A young man with trembling hands, who has been sitting in the corner all evening, sipping quietly, pretending to belong. He is not a guest, he is the offering. Marcus walks to him, crouches, whispers, just 2 words. Begin now. The harpist nods. He rises, not all at once. First the fingers, then the spine, then the breath. He walks to the center of the triclinium, and sits, cross-legged. The harp rests on his knees like a lover. He plucks one string, just one. The sound hangs in the air like incense. He waits, then, another string. The room holds its breath, and then, he plays. Not fast, not slow, but in circles, always circles, each note folding into the next like petals of a flower that never fully opens. And as he plays, the guests begin to cry, softly, not from sadness, but from remembering. They remember a dream they had once in spring. They remember a scent from childhood they forgot they loved. They remember a moment in the bath when someone's fingers brushed theirs by accident and stayed. Tears fall, but no one hides them. No one apologizes, because the harp is not a performance. It is permission to feel. Marcus walks once more, now less a planner, more a guardian. He brings each guest a small square of linen, not to clean, but to hold. It smells faintly of lavender and parchment. They grip it, not for wiping eye, but because it gives their hands something to hold when the heart is too full. And now, the final story, told not by voice. The servants carry in small trays, each with a smoking cup of herbs. The smoke is thin, silver blue winding in slow spirals. Each guest receives one cup. They inhale. They close their eyes. They see things. Not with the eyes, but with whatever it is that dreams see with. Some see forests. Some see the sea. One man sees a woman's smile. One woman sees a child's hand. One guest does not see anything. She only feels warmth in her chest, like sun on stone. That is enough. Marcus allows the harpist to finish, not with a flourish, but with a breath. The strings stop, and silence returns like a friend. The dancers are gone. No one saw them leave. The doves are asleep, heads tucked under wings. The wine has stopped being poured. No one notices. Marcus looks around. Some guests are curled now, lying softly on their sides. Not asleep, not awake, just suspended. 1 or 2 still sit upright, hands clasped, faces blank as moonlight. They do not speak. They do not need to. The orgy has already happened, not in the way the outside world imagines. Not in bodies tangled in loud breath, but in the melting. the letting go, the dissolving of time, of names, of need. Marcus lets out one final sigh. Deep, satisfied, he walks to the center, kneels, and pours water from a tiny cup onto the mosaic floor. It hisses, and that is the signal. The ending has begun. The lamps are dimmed further. The guests, slowly, are guided to the quiet rooms. Not bedrooms, but rooms made for resting, for drifting. Each one padded with cushions, blankets like clouds, windows open to the stars. No words are spoken, just touches, just warmth, just breath. Marcus stays behind, sits alone, watches the final lamp flicker, and go out. And in the silence, he smiles. The lamps are out now, not just dimmed, fully out. There's only moonlight. Not much, just a pale spill across the floor, like milk poured from a dreaming hand. Marcus sits in the dark alone, with his palms resting face up on his knees, as if still receiving something. The villa is quiet. No footsteps, no whispers, only the slow, sleepy breath of the walls themselves. Yes, even marble breathes at this hour, if you listen closely enough. Outside, in the garden, the air is shifting. The breeze has changed direction, just slightly. The scent of wet olive leaves now curls in, soft and ancient, the kind of smell that lives in temples and forgotten scrolls. He stands slowly. His limbs feel heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of calm. Marcus walks down a corridor lined with painted walls. The frescoes seem to glow faintly in the moonlight. A woman with ivy in her hair, a boy chasing a rooster, a centaur teaching a lesson. They do not move, but somehow they watch. Marcus moves with intention. Each step is quiet, barefoot now. He always removes his sandals at this hour. The sound of skin meeting stone. More honest, he stops at the first door on the left, pushes it open. Inside, silence. 5 guests lie curled among silk sheets and goose feather pillows, each in their own little cloud, some with arms flung open like dreaming lovers, some with knees tucked up like children. One has a linen cloth still clutched gently in their fist. Marcus steps in, not to wake them, no, just to feel. He stands in the center of the room and closes his eyes. Yes, the energy is soft, pooled like rain in a courtyard. Good. He moves to the next room. 7 guests here, one murmuring in sleep, one humming a half-forgotten melody from the harp. Marcus listens. He could write this all down if he wanted. A book of emotions, a scroll of sighs, but he doesn't. This moment isn't for memory, it's for presence. He moves on, room by room. Some guests still sit upright, staring at nothing in awe. Others are half awake, swaying gently, as if listening to lullabies only they can hear. No one speaks. They are past speech now. And so Marcus returns to the heart of the villa, the room where it all began. But he doesn't sit. No, now it's time for the aftercare. You didn't think it ended with the last wine pour. Oh no, the role of an orgy planner doesn't end when the guests begin to drift. That is when it truly begins again. Because pleasure, if not sealed gently, can curdle. The soul needs weaving back together, and Marcus knows how. He walks to a small alcove behind a curtain, takes out a narrow tray lined with tiny bronze bowls. Each one contains a salve, a scent, or a seed. The tray is warm, not heated but held warm, all night by a hidden candle flame. He carries it out, placing it on a table in the center of the now empty triclinium. Then he begins the ritual of restoration. First he dips his fingers into the oil of pressed bay leaves and myrrh. This blend is not for skin. He walks around the edges of the room, anointing the corners with small touches. The walls sigh. The marble softens. Even the air changes color, ever so slightly. Then he selects a powder made from crushed pomegranate skin and dried lotus root. He sprinkles it lightly into the brazier. It doesn't smoke. It hums, low, slow, like a sound only bones understand. The vibration settles into the floor, into the columns, into the veins of the villa. Marcus sits in silence, not praying, not hoping, just listening. for any sign of imbalance. There is none. And so, he finally turns his attention to himself. It's time. Time for his cleansing. He walks slowly to the atrium, where a round pool waits in silence. Still water. Silver in moonlight. Not decorative. Not ceremonial. Just quiet. He removes his robe, folds it, places it on a bench, and steps into the water. Ah, the water isn't cold. It's exact. It wraps him like understanding. He closes his eyes and lets himself float. No movement, no strokes, just drifting, the kind of floating that the dead must envy. He stays like that for a long time, maybe minutes, maybe centuries, and in that floating, he sees the faces of the guests again, one by one, not their eyes or lips, but their shapes, their hungers, their sighs. He remembers them, not in detail, but in feeling, and then, he lets them go, because a planner must never keep, only guide. When he finally steps out of the water, the stars have shifted. The moon has passed behind a cloud, a sign, time to begin the refolding of the space. He dresses again, this time in linen, plain, dry. He walks back to the triclinium, still empty, still perfect, and yet, something tugs. He walks to the couch where Celine had rested. There, a hairpin, bronze, shaped like a fishbone, delicate, forgotten. He picks it up, holds it to the light, and smiles, then places it gently on the center table. It will be returned, not tonight, but at the right moment, because timing is everything. A quiet knock sounds at the west passage. Marcus tilts his head. The baker. He arrives just before dawn, carrying a basket of honeyed barley cakes, still warm from the oven. Marcus takes it, nods, no words. He places the basket in the corridor. It will wait there, warming the air with sweet steam, until the first guest stirs. Those who wake early will find it, a gift, a grounding, a tether to morning. And now, Marcus goes to the highest balcony. The sky is turning, from black, to violet, to the faintest whisper of blue, and there, perched on the edge of the stone, one dove remains, still awake, watching. Marcus sits beside it, not too close, just enough. The dove tilts its head. Marcus breathes. Together, they watch the first line of light touch the horizon, not a sunrise, a promise. And in that moment, soft and secret, the orgy ends, not with a gasp, but with a breath. A closing, a sealing, a return. The planner's job is not just to create chaos and elegance, but to gather what is left after the wine fades, and fold it gently into silence. He leans back, letting the first sunbeam kiss his closed eyelids, and in that light, he The sunlight touches the villa differently now, not like yesterday, not like the 100 days before. The morning after a night of pleasure doesn't shimmer, it settles, softly, gently, like a robe slipping from the shoulders of a tired goddess. Marcus doesn't rush, he never does. His eyes open slowly, as if each lash had to wake on its own. He doesn't sit up immediately. Instead, he listens, to the distant scrape of a wooden spoon against a clay pot in the kitchen, to the flutter of a curtain as the breeze stretches through the corridor, to the muffled laugh of a guest, still caught between dreaming and memory. Yes, it was a successful night. But a Roman orgy isn't just about what happens, it's about what lingers, what drips into the corners of the day after, like warm olive oil over polished wood. He rises, his feet touch the floor. There again, meeting cool mosaic tiles that still hold whispers of the night. He wraps a soft, thin linen cloth over his shoulder, not for warmth, but for softness. Everything today must be soft, soothing, restoring. Even the sunlight filtering through the atrium is slow, golden, a sleepy kind of light. He steps into the peristyle garden, not to prune, not to water, just to walk. The ground is still damp from the night dew, and the air smells of lavender and earth. A snail crawls across a flat stone, even it moves with intention. The fountain is murmuring, not babbling, murmuring, like it's telling a secret in a language only the tired can understand. Marcus sits by it, dipping one finger into the water. He draws a slow circle on the surface, ripples, like time, soft fading. soft again. This is the first rite of the day after observation. Not planning, not fixing, just seeing where the silk napkins ended up, the sandals tossed near the stairs, a smear of fig on the side of a goblet. He lets the villa tell its story. Every object is a syllable, every echo, a pause. He listens to all of it, and nods. Only then does he rise, and begin the second rite, comfort. The guests do not all wake at once. No, they emerge like stars disappearing at dawn, one by one.
And there is Carius, first as always, yawning like a lion, his hair flattened on one side. Marcus hands him a warm cloth, soaked in rose water. No words, just the cloth. Carius presses it to his face, and sighs. That's enough. Then there's Julia, with glitter still stuck to her shoulder, wearing someone else's tunic. She wanders into the atrium, as if the floor might still be moving. Marcus hands her a small piece of sweetened bread, and a chilled grape pressed onto a toothpick made of gold. She giggles, takes it, walks away. One by one, they come, each different, each needing a different kind of softness. Some want quiet, some want fruit, some want silence. With a hand on their shoulder, Marcus provides all of it, not by asking, just by knowing. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him needed. By the third hour after sunrise, the villa begins to hum again. Low, gentle, like bees just waking inside a fig tree. A lute plays softly from somewhere near the guest wing. No lyrics, just chords. Familiar ones, soothing ones. Marcus walks toward the sound. He finds Dama, the young musician, sitting on a bench with eyes half closed. Her fingers move without thought. Marcus nods to her, sits beside her, and listens. They don't speak. They don't need to, because this is the third rite. Acknowledgement. The night was not just pleasure. It was sacred, strange, vulnerable. And this music, it tells that story without shame. Just beauty. By midday, the sunlight grows a bit bolder, wider, reaching farther into the villa. Marcus knows it's time for the guests to begin leaving. Not all at once, but slowly, naturally, like smoke thinning in the sky. He walks to the back storeroom, where he keeps small parting gifts, bundles of dried herbs, delicate jars of scented oil, scrolls with light poetry. He doesn't hand them out like a merchant. He leaves them quietly in each guest's robe, or on their bedside table. A tiny gesture, but it says you were seen. Some guests linger longer. There's always a few. Today it's Tiberius, who sits by the pool still processing something unspoken. Marcus brings him a cup of barley milk, with a dash of cinnamon. Tiberius accepts it, eyes wide, as if surprised anyone would remember his favorite. He sips, then whispers, "Thank you." Just that. Marcus doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The cup, the moment, the stillness. They are enough. They are the fourth rite, gentle closure. Not an ending. A gentle folding. By the time the sun begins to dip, just a little, the villa is nearly empty again. Only the quiet remains, and a few fading footprints on the floor. Marcus sits in the triclinium again, the same room that just last night echoed with laughter, music, the soft crash of bodies and cushions. Now, only bird song from outside the shutters, and the faint smell of crushed berries on the table. He closes his eyes, not to nap, but to catalog, to walk through the entire night again, step by step. Not the movements, but the feelings. What did each guest need? What moment almost shattered? What new ritual was born? He takes a small scroll from the drawer under the main couch, unrolls it. It's not labeled, not titled, just a running account of nights past. He adds today's date, then writes, "Morning hummed slowly. The first sigh from the south room was 34 minutes after dawn. The fig syrup was too thick. Julia likes the gold toothpicks better than the silver one." Carius was calm but distant. Perhaps offer warm wine instead of rose cloth next time. The moon was exactly half. No injuries. One lost sandal, left behind intentionally. Dama's song sounded like healing, success, clean joy. Not ecstatic, just soft, just enough. Restocking saffron. Next one.
Let them arrive barefoot, might change everything. He stops, rolls the scroll, returns it to its place. And now, comes the fifth rite. The final one. Reset. He walks room by room again, but not like last night. Now, he gathers. A cup here, a dropped earring there, a spilled strand of pearls near the stairs. He doesn't rush. Each item is held, admired, cleaned, and returned to its home. This isn't cleaning, this is honoring. Every detail is part of the ritual. Every crumb and thread tells a truth. He washes the linens himself. Not all of them, just the ones from the triclinium. He does this barefoot, with cold water. There is something about feeling the marble floor underfoot, the water on his wrists, the scent of lavender soap rising slowly into the air. This isn't work, it's worship. He hangs the sheets in the back courtyard, watches them ripple gently in the breeze, like surrender, like breath, like memory letting go. By the time the stars begin peeking through the sky again, Marcus is seated on the roof, alone. The villa is quiet, clean, whole. Below, the lamps glow in small alcoves, soft orange halos in the night. Not announcing, just comforting. He sips a cup of warm spiced wine. Not sweet, not bitter, just steady. And he thinks. Not about the next event. Not about logistics. Just about this. How beautiful it is that people trust him with their most hidden selves. How rare it is to be the vessel, not the flame. And how powerful it feels to hold space for others. And then walk away, without needing to be remembered. That is his gift. That is his role. The orgy planner is not the star. He is the silence that cradles the stars. He is the pause between the moans. He is the hand that lights the lamp and disappears before anyone notices it was dark. He finishes the wine, stands. The breeze wraps around him like a ribbon of night, and he smiles. Tomorrow, another request may come. A letter, a whisper, a suggestion of pleasure needing to be shaped. He will answer it. He always does. But for now, the villa sleeps, and so will he. Good night, Marcus. You did well, so well. Something's different today. The sunlight creeps in with less confidence, as if it's peeking in to ask permission first. Marcus notices. He always does. The shadows stretch farther across the marble tiles. The breeze moves slower through the villa halls. Even the birds seem to sing in minor tones. It isn't sadness. No, not quite. It's something else, like anticipation folded into a blanket of stillness. Today isn't just any day. It's the beginning of preparation. Not for a party. Not for a feast, but for the kind of gathering that doesn't get written down, doesn't get talked about openly, and yet, it's the one everyone waits for quietly. Deep down. Marcus is preparing for the Night of Echoes. Not every Roman knows of it. Not even every host. It's not on the calendar. It doesn't follow the lunar schedule or the emperor's parade. It comes only when the air feels heavy. Not hot, not cold, just weighty. When the skin tingles for no reason. When guests begin speaking in half questions, and no one wants to leave too quickly after dinner. Yes, then the time has arrived. Marcus felt it last night, just as he folded the last sheet over the marble couch. He paused, blinked once, and whispered to himself, "It's time." That's all it took. That's all it ever takes. Today he doesn't start with flowers or food or silk or lamps. No. He begins with footsteps. Bare ones. He walks through each room of the villa slowly, in a new pattern. A spiral, starting from the outer garden, circling inward, tighter, smaller, until he ends in the round atrium, exactly beneath the open sky. He does this to listen, not with his ears, but with the soles of his feet. The marble tells him things, where energy gathers, where it leaks, where it hums. He nods quietly to himself after every room. The library is full, of thought, of tension. Too many scrolls left open. He closes each one gently, then breathes into the air, a soft and the room exhales back, balanced. The kitchen, empty, but not hungry, just sleeping. He opens the olive jar and stirs it once clockwise. The oil catches a glint of sun. That's enough. Now the west guest wing. Still too much laughter clinging to the drapes. He touches them, one by one, brushing down, as if combing out memories. A calm should settle there soon. And the bath? Ah, it's waiting. He dips a hand in, still warm from yesterday's soak, as if the stone remembered. That's good. The villa is ready to speak again. Now Marcus must decide what voice it will use. He begins selecting objects, not decorations, not gifts, anchors. Each space will receive only one symbol to hold the night in place. The triclinium. He places a small carved amber rabbit beneath the center table. It's smooth, old, but its shape still catches light like honey. In the northern walkway, under the arch, he ties a thin crimson ribbon around the middle column. Just once, a soft knot. Let it flutter. Let it remind someone of a goodbye they once forgot to say. Near the pool, a single apricot, fresh and unsliced, whole, waiting, unbitten. This is how the night of echoes begins. Through feeling, not planning. Through invitation, not instruction. As midday passes, Marcus changes his robe. He doesn't wear black, too heavy, or white, too loud. Instead he chooses a robe dyed with crushed violets, faded over time. It has no decoration, no trim, but it moves like mist when he walks. He wears no sandals, no rings, only a thin copper chain around one wrist. Not for display, for weight, something to remind him of his role. He is not here to dazzle, he is here to open the door that leads to depth. The guests tonight will not be many. That's how it always is. Only those who sense it, who crave something quieter than pleasure, something gentler than wine. They will arrive without announcement, not laughing, not loud, just present. And Marcus will meet each one the same way, with an open hand, and a silent nod. As the sun begins its descent, the villa shifts again. The breeze curls through the corridors like a whispering child. The light through the rooftop oculus turns amber, then gold, then a kind of soft gray. This is when Marcus lights the first lamp. Not for sight, for signal. He places it beside the eastern staircase. It is filled with oil infused with sage and orange peel. The flame flickers with a slight spiral. Perfect. He moves to the main hall. Lights the second. This one smells faintly of rosemary. And something else, something old. He continues, one by one, never all at once. There will only be 7 tonight. 7 flames, 7 moments. 7 corners for truth to hide in. By the time the 6th lamp is lit, the first guest has arrived. It's Livia. Her steps are always silent. She's the kind who doesn't knock, just enters, like thought. Marcus greets her with a slow bow. No words. He offers her a pear slice wrapped in basil. She accepts, no chewing, just holding it against her tongue. That's enough. She walks into the atrium and sits beside the rabbit. Smiles. Barely. Marcus knows, she's not here to talk. She's here to remember something. Something soft, something lost. The second guest is older. Gaius, his beard now gray, but his posture still proud. He says nothing, just hands Marcus a folded piece of linen. Inside a single seed. Yes, he's ready to let go of something. Marcus leads him to the bath chamber. The water is waiting, still warm, still blue. A single reed floats on its surface. Balance. More guests arrive. 3 women, 1 young man with a silver band over his eyes, and a dancer Marcus has never met, whose feet barely touch the floor. Each one is given a place, a presence, no assignments, no rules, just space. Marcus doesn't tell them what the night is for, he lets them discover it. Soon, the villa holds a hush so complete, it feels like velvet stretched over sound. Every room has a hum, not from music, but from breath, the breath of those letting go, untying, remembering. Some lie flat on their backs on the marble floor. Others stand in corners, facing walls, palms pressed as if listening through stone. One woman has placed her fingers in a bowl of milk. and is tracing shapes in the puddle it forms. Another guest kneels in front of a broken sandal and stares at it as if it's the first object she's ever seen. Marcus walks among them. Not as a guide, as a guardian. He carries a bowl of warm dates. Offers them silently. Not everyone takes one. That's fine. Some just smile. Some cry. Some don't look up at all. And somewhere, deep in the west room, someone begins to hum. Low, slow, like memory itself. The hum spreads. Not like music, more like water moving under a locked door. Gentle, unstoppable. Marcus doesn't hum, he simply listens, because this is the moment he prepares for every year, but never knows when it will come. The relief, the sound of pain turning into rhythm, sorrow into song. Not performance, not show, just pure human, raw, ancient, echo. The night of echoes has fully begun. No one counts the hours. Time loses meaning. Some guests curl into cushions and begin to sleep. Others draw invisible shapes in the air. One woman presses her forehead to a column and stays there for what might be forever. Marcus moves slower now. He places a soft wool blanket over anyone who shivers. He dims the final lamp, not to end the night, but to soften it. There will be no conclusion, no clapping, no closing words. Only this quiet, this deep peace that only comes when nothing is expected anymore. By the time the last guest leaves, long past the middle of the night, the villa is filled with the scent of worn candles, crushed basil and bare skin. Marcus sits alone in the atrium again. The stars above are the only ones who watched everything, and even they remain silent. He reaches beneath the table and retrieves the amber rabbit. Still warm, he tucks it into his robe, rises, and walks the spiral path again, back outward, this time, not to listen, but to say thank you, to every stone, every cushion, every breath still lingering in the corners. And as he reaches the outer garden, the last part of the spiral, he stops, closes his eyes, and lets the silence enter him fully, like wine, like shadow, like grace. Tomorrow the villa will return to silk and grapes and laughter and spilled perfumes. But tonight, it was something else, something ancient, something real. And Marcus was not just a planner, he was a keeper, of silence, of truth, of echoes. Good night, Marcus. You heard everything, and said nothing, just as it should be. So, where were we? Yes. Marcus had just walked out from the perfumery, still trailing the soft scent of warm cinnamon, myrrh and clove along the Roman street that was starting to fade into an early evening hush. You can feel it too, right? The sun is beginning to mellow. The once golden light that poured across the marble steps and dusted clay bricks is now melting into a low amber glow. Shadows are getting longer. Everything is slowing down. Even Marcus, with his scroll bag a little heavier than it was this morning. And his sandals more worn from the long circuits between bakeries, bathhouses, kitchens, spice stalls, silken tailors, and gossiping informants, is finally beginning to feel that familiar evening weight in his shoulders as he walks past the fountain with the chipped dolphin statue. Yes, the same one where he sometimes stops for a cup of water or tosses in a lazy coin when no one's looking. He hears the distant echo of someone practicing the flute. Just a young boy, not far off. Maybe belonging to the musician guild down the street. The sound is thin but sweet, floating in the air like incense. Up, then down, meandering, uncertain notes. Marcus smiles to himself. There's something oddly calming about that. Imperfect music drifting across cobblestone at dusk. It's moments like this that make the frantic hours of core lists, wine tastings, and negotiation with linen vendors worth it. He turns right at the corner, slowly now, not the hurried pivot of the morning rush, and slips into the narrow alley that cuts through to his quiet villa. It's tucked behind an ivy-covered wall, not too big, not too small, enough for a few small rooms, a courtyard with potted herbs, and a couch he barely ever uses during the day. The creak of the wooden gate greets him, soft and familiar, and the scent, rosemary and thyme warmed by the late sun. His sandals scuff against the smooth stone as he steps inside, shutting the gate behind him with a gentle clunk. And then, silence. Just soft, sleepy silence. Only the low hum of crickets starting their nightly song, and the occasional flutter of wings from a bird settling somewhere unseen. He takes off his shoes. That feels better. He sets the scroll bag down gently on the clay bench by the wall, careful not to tip over the small ceramic vase holding dried figs. He's thinking, should he write down everything that happened today? Some planners like to keep detailed ledgers. Who arrived when? Which wines were praised? Which dancers tripped? Which noblewoman wore what shade of ochre? But Marcus, well, he prefers to remember through scent, taste, texture, memory like silk, soft folding on itself, not too sharp. He lights a small oil lamp in the corner. It flickers gently like a drowsy eye opening and closing. Then comes the sound of linen, his soft, loose robe brushing against the floor as he changes. Finally out of the formal drape, he steps barefoot onto the cool terracotta tiles and walks over to the reclining couch in the corner of the room. He sinks into it, deeper than usual, the day catching up to his body, each limb unwinding slowly. First the arms, then the legs, then the breath. A long sigh. Outside, you can hear the occasional creak of a cart rolling somewhere far off. Maybe someone bringing late offerings to a temple. Maybe just a merchant heading home. It's hard to tell. The world is slipping behind a soft curtain now. Marcus reaches to the side. Yes. The small bowl of candied dates, soaked gently in wine and honey. He picks one, chews slowly. The sweetness blooms in his mouth like a memory. He doesn't need more. Just one is enough. The oil lamp flickers again. The flame dances briefly, then steadies. His eyes drift over to the corner where his low writing desk sits. The stylus is there. The wax tablets too. But no, not tonight. Tonight no scribbling, no plans, no menus, no chore lists, no diagrams of couch arrangements or color pairings. Just stillness. He tilts his head back. The ceiling beams are familiar, each knot in the wood known to him by heart. He closes his eyes for a moment. The sounds of the city fade now. Even the flute is gone. He opens his eyes again, just a little. A moth flutters near the lamp, circling in lazy loops. He watches it for a moment, mesmerized. Marcus leans his head to the side, resting it on the cushion. The faint smell of lavender from the cushion cover, washed last week with floral oils, still lingers. He breathes in slowly, then out. From beyond the gate, there's a soft knock. No urgency, just a quiet tap. Perhaps the houseboy, bringing a note. No, he waits. Another knock does not come. It must have been the wind. He stays where he is, not moving, just thinking, floating, unraveling the day in reverse, like pulling the thread gently back through a needle. The morning rush to confirm the figs. The midday sun at the baths. The moment the peacocks startled at the musician's harp. The merchant who tried to sell him saffron at twice the price. The senator's wife, complimenting the scent of the perfume he chose. The laughter when the roasted duck arrived too early. The slight panic, quickly fixed. And the long moment of applause when the acrobats managed the final handstand on the wine urn. Ah, yes, that was something, but it all feels distant now. Softened, rounded. No sharp edges remain, only the warmth of it. He reaches for a second date, then changes his mind. One was enough. He closes his eyes again, this time longer. The lamp continues to flicker. The moth has gone. A breeze from the open window shifts the curtain slightly. A whisper of cooler air slides across the room, barely noticeable, but Marcus stirs slightly, just to tug the blanket a little higher. He whispers something, maybe to himself, maybe to no one. A tiny murmur, not even a full word. Outside, a single owl calls. The room is still. The stories of the day, all the quiet details of spice and silk and sandals and side-eye glances and citrus-scented oils have tucked themselves away, hidden behind the folds of his robe and under the threads of the couch. There's nothing left to do. Just breathe. If you are still awake, then I think you have to see the video from 22nd minute of the story. or play this side video as maybe it can help you sleep better. Goodbye.